reminder.
question
And
right here.
okay.
This one right here where it says, do you know how many Americans
Okay,
die
should I
from
call it?
gunshots each year? That part, just like this part. If I cut out these two sentences, would this one sentence here be
Those
correct?
paragraphs?
Yeah, if I
Should we
cut
go,
these two
guys?
paragraphs in that one
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
right here.
Well, that little statistic
If
right
everyone
there.
could please find their
One,
seats, we're
you
about to
don't
begin.
really have a source after it. But two, that kind of is covered
We are now in session.
in this right here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
If we can all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I hate this part.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
With liberty and justice for all. You know we were in the
Welcome to the representatives and guests to the second full session of the fourth legislative semester. I would like to say a reminder that there are no cell phones, iPads, or other electronic devices that are allowed in full session. For those of you giving a speech, please remember to talk directly into the microphone or the sound quality is not very good. Also, I'd like to make an announcement about the calendar, our schedule for today. There's been some slight changes made. The first bill we're going to do is House Bill 401, and then we're going to do House Bill 110, year-round schooling. Then we're going to do House Bill 103, legalization of euthanasia, and then House Bill 104, increasing border control. Fifth is now going to be the House Bill 405, decreasing restrictions and interrogation methods. So that has been moved back. And then we will end with legalizing gay marriage. Clerk, would you please read the roll? You don't have attendance? Floor leaders, do we have an attendance sheet?
I didn't get one. We could go off the committee pages if it's necessary, because none of us have an attendance sheet. Are there any teachers in here? Okay. Brittany has one. Miss McCone has one.
All right, we're going to break it off by committees. In Committee 1, Mr. Pulak, Mr. Berg, Mr. Carlson, Mr. De Leon,
Present.
Ms. DeSoto, Mr. Wilmot, Ms. Henning, Mr. Hamadas, Mr. Klensky, Ms. Lewis, Ms. Marsh, Ms. McCone, Ms. Melson, oh, that's confusing. Ms. Paz, Ms. Perez, Mr. Rogers, Ms. Semro, Mr. Smith, Ms. Stout, Mr. Martins, Mr. Markoff, Ms. Hoey, Ms. Ward, Mr. Warner. Did you say he was here? Oh, okay. Mr. Wilmot. Or I guess I told you twice. Miss Williams,
Here.
Miss Siddons, Miss Anthony, Mr. Argueta, Mr. Bronowski, Mr. Danny, Mr. Doyle, Miss Driver, Miss Felgar, Mr. Franks, Mr. Fruin, Miss Grafer, Mr. Lindsley, Miss Lopez, Mr. Lapins, Miss Martinez, Mr. Mickus, Mr. Maloney, Miss Oakes, Miss Olahars, Mr. Cuerzo, Mr. Schulze, Mr. Kowalski, is that how you say it? Okay, sorry about that. Mr. Termini, Miss Tucker,
Here.
Miss Wise, Miss Hart, Miss Schultz, Miss Andrade, Mr. Berman, Miss Cartwright, Mr. Easterline, Mr. Golden, Miss Guerrero, Mr. Heinberg, Miss Hogan, Mr. Vogel, Miss Lopez, Miss Karsten, Mr. Lindau, Mr. Lopez, Miss Tremmel, Miss Meehan, Mr. Mortensen, Miss Quintanar, Mr. Ron, Mr. Rote,
Here.
Mr. Corson, Mr. Smart, Miss Smith, Mr. Gigiano, Miss Langen, Miss Sloan, Miss Adams, Mr. Andre, Mr. Barrent, Miss Cisneros, Miss Clark, Mr. Darlington, Miss Furlick, Mr. Galante, Mr. Guerra, Miss Grossen, Mr. Heftrig, Mr. Huerta, Mr. Kuhn, Miss Lepak, Miss Mackey, Miss Lentz, Miss Trader, Mr. Mueller, Mr. Quick, Miss Redersdorf, Mr. Tegler, Mr. Tush, Miss Villy,
Clerk, do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. Okay, we will begin this full session with House Bill 401, establishing firearm magazine capacity. This bill was postponed from our last session. I will yield 5 minutes for opening statements to the bill sponsor.
On February 18, 2013, the Colorado House voted to ban high-capacity magazines, ammunition magazines, and conceal and carry. Democratic majority parties also passed measures to require background checks on firearm sales between private parties and for Coloradans to pay for all state gun verifications. Both these bills were all passed by both Colorado, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Democrats state there is no place in this country for military-style rifles that were used in the Sandy Hook shootings, as 26 children's lives were taken that day. As a supporter to this bill, our president thoroughly stated, if there's one life we could save, we've got an obligation to try. So, should magazine capacity for firearms be limited? Well, the Newtown shootings took a death toll, 27 people, 18 were children, 13 killed in the Columbine, 12 in the Aurora shooting, 12 in the Colorado theater shooting, leaving 58 injured. Lowering the magazine capacity will create a more positive influence on using firearms, keeping magazine capacity regulated, possibly lowering the crime rate and lowering the death rate. This bill is also cheap, as the Federal Bureau of Investigations stated it will cost around $5 to $12 million. Overall, this bill is an attempt to save lives, human or animal. Examples for high-capacity magazines are like drum magazines that could hold 30-plus rounds, and ammunition belts that can hold unlimited amounts of ammunition. Also, to those who obtain high-capacity firearms illegally, a proposal has been created that will close the loophole for regulations to private party markets. This bill pertains to citizens and not to our military, as they work for the government and swear an oath to protect our nation. I myself am a firearm owner, and I love my guns. This bill isn't violating any rights to our gun owners, and to conclude my part, this bill is an attempt to stop any type of mass shooting and any danger to the American society and wildlife. It does not violate the right to bear arms. I yield my time to the chair.
Thank you. I will now yield 3 minutes to the opposing side.
I yield my time to Mr. Doyle.
To start off, my sources are theblaze.com and WND.com, which stands for WorldNet Daily. This bill isn't written very well. The bill shows what I see as another step towards taking away our Second Amendment rights. Sure, people will argue this is just one bill. No, this will turn into more and more control over guns, and then the Second Amendment will cease to exist. I feel the issue is the medical field. Magazine capacity is not. Most crimes are committed while on certain medications. Some 90% of school shootings over more than a decade have been linked to widely prescribed type of antidepressants called SSRI. Other antidepressants are also found in the criminals, such as Prozac and Celexa. Maybe we should figure out who is being medicated correctly, not the magazine capacity. This will also decrease the advantage to defend ourselves. Give or take, if this bill is passed, there will always be a black market. We know this from Operation Fast and Furious. Due to the fact the law-abiding citizen will be in greater risk of defending themselves against a certain individual trying to harm them that has the current legal magazine off the black market. It is the individual that commits the crime, not the gun. The Second Amendment clearly states the Americans have the right to regulate a militia in order to defend themselves. Charles Manson killed with a knife, and the Boston Marathon was bombed. We have to realize this. Weapons will always find their way into the hands of bad people, always. But guns must remain in the hands of good people. I yield my time to Mr. Vogel.
First and foremost, House Bill 401 does not address the limiting of handgun magazines. According to FBI.gov, the most common type of weapon used to commit murders is in fact the handgun. Consistently since 2006, Handguns have by far been the leading weapon out of all weapons, including other gun types, knives, blunt objects, personal weapons such as hands, feet, etc., poison, explosives, fire, narcotics, drowning, strangulation, and asphyxiation. How could the bill sponsors have chosen to overlook this fact? How can we as representatives let such a negligent bill pass and become a law? The NRA argues that limiting the capacity of firearm magazines would have no effect on gun violence. It would solely put this equipment in the hands of criminals by creating a black market instead of those who know how to use and respect a gun.
I reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield my floor to Ms. Williams.
I reserve the remainder of my time.
Thank you. 3 minutes will now be yielded to the supporting side.
I yield my time to Ms. Weiss.
Sandy Hook, 26 to 7-year-olds, 6 adults, both with multiple gunshots to each person, firing at least 167 rounds. 11 children escaped due to a jamming while reloading his firearm. Aurora, Colorado, July 20th, 2012, 12 dead and 38 wounded during a midnight screening of The Dark Knight Rises. These are only a few incidents of gun violence that leads to a massacre of people. From Sandy Hook shooting, there is evidence that when you reload, there is a chance of jamming, which could save lives like those children. With lower magazines, this will mean that a shooter needs to reload more often. Because of this fact, the more times that a gun has to be reloaded, the higher chance there is that a gun will jam, giving victims the chance to escape. This bill does not cut guns from people, just limits how many rounds are able to shoot at once. There's a difference in limiting magazine sizes and banning weapons altogether. Senator Angus King Jr., independent of Maine, said high-capacity magazines have contributed to a lot of these tragedies, stated in the New York Times. With this in mind, we must remember this bill is to keep guns away from mentally unstable human beings, and in case where someone that does not fit to handle a gun does get their hands on a firearm, they will need crucial seconds to reload. Lower magazines will come with more reload time, ultimately saving lives. Again, this bill does not cut guns from people, just limits how many rounds are able to shoot at once. I yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Rote.
I would like to yield the remainder of my time.
You got 1 minute.
I will now yield 3 minutes to opposition.
I yield my time to Ms. Ziller.
I was recently watching the Fox News one night, and they showed a clip of the NRA's official meeting, which was held May 3rd through the 5th. The president and CEO, Wayne LaPierre, stated, "The only way you will ever stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun." I now ask you the question, do guns really kill people, or do people kill people? Many people say that it is, in fact, that the guns kill people, but I beg to differ with their viewpoints. I read on a post on Facebook by a fellow friend who shared a story with me. The story was long and extensive, so to make a long story short, there was this lady who put a chair on her front porch and placed the gun on the chair and walked away and did not come back until nighttime. Throughout the day, many people passed by the gun, like the mailman, her children, neighbors, family members, salesmen, and many animals. When the owner of the gun came back, she found no dead bodies in her yard and no injured bodies in her yard. She concluded that either she has the laziest gun in America, or it is, in fact, that guns do not kill people. So what are we supposed to do when crazy people come shooting at us? Ask them to politely stop? I don't know about you, but if someone was putting my life in danger with a gun, I would want the chance to defend myself with a gun as well. I yield my time to Mr. Heinberg.
I'd like to start out by pointing out that firearms do not jam while reloading, they jam while cycling, just to get that clear. Now, over the past few months, whether or not to limit the magazine capacity of civilian firearms has been widely debated. I'm standing here today to tell you why I do not believe in limiting magazines. First of all, we must understand what a magazine is. In a firearm, a magazine is used to hold extra ammunition in a compartment separate from the firing chamber of the weapon. This allows the firing chamber to be quickly refilled with a new cartridge each time the weapon is cycled. When a magazine is empty, it simply has to be released from the weapon and replaced with a fresh magazine which contains more ammunition. These magazines are reusable and can be reloaded with new ammunition when unmounted from the firearm. Now that we are clear on what a magazine does, we can analyze the bill at hand. In the bill, it states that the maximum number of rounds that a magazine could contain would be limited by a federal law. This can be done one of two ways, by making the magazine smaller or placing a spacer in the magazine to take place of these extra rounds. This law will do nothing to stop criminals because criminals can still buy high-capacity magazines on the black market. Swapping out an empty magazine takes literally a couple of seconds, and I can say from personal experience that I can change out an AR-15 magazine in less than 2 seconds. To someone who is on the attack, that 2 seconds is not going to be anything more than a minor nuisance. So as you can see, there are many reasons why this bill will not help our society. It will have a negative effect on law-abiding citizens and will do virtually nothing to criminals.
I will now yield 3 minutes to supporting side.
I yield my time to Ms. Rettersdorf.
I rise in support of HB 401 of limiting firearm magazine capacity. First of all, it shouldn't take 50 or more bullets to shoot a person. Even if a person has bad aim, if anyone really wants to kill someone, they will be able to kill that person. According to Washington Post Firearms, experts say restrictions on magazines, detachable ammunition storage and feeding devices might not prevent a fatal shooting, but could prevent it from turning into a massacre. The higher capacity of guns are just for the battlefield. The large capacity magazines, which greatly increase a gun's firepower, were designed for the battlefield to help soldiers spray a huge number of bullets quickly without reloading or being skilled marksmen. Some magazines hold 30 or 60 rounds, others called drums contain at least 100. There is no need for an average person to have 50 or more bullets in one gun. Again, I support HB 401 of limiting firearms magazine capacity. Give my time to Mr. Rowe.
How much time do I have left?
2 minutes and 40 seconds.
I'd like to yield the remainder of my time.
You got it. 2 minutes and 40 seconds.
I will now yield 3 minutes to support the opposing side.
Point of information, didn't he just say I'd like to yield my time?
You yielded his time.
Right, but that's not reserving, correct?
It's the same thing.
You didn't say reserve, it's not the same thing.
Same thing.
I yield my time to Ms. Driver.
All right, I'm reading this on behalf of one of my fellow congressmen. As a Republican, I'm strongly against this bill. There are multiple reasons why I'm against House Bill 401. To start off, it is poorly written. It states that rifles can hold up to the maximum of 45 to 60 rounds. This is false. An AR-15 with a beta mag can hold up to 100 rounds. It is also illegal to convert your AR-15 to be belt-fed. If you do this, it does not require any magazines and can hold up to 200 rounds of ammunition. So that's without a magazine. Since the belt-fed rifle does not require magazines, it would not be affected by this bill, so it could still fire 200 rounds. Another problem with this bill is that it does not say anything about limiting the magazine capacity in pistols or handguns. According to magpul.com, 90% of homicides involve a firearm as a pistol. Pistols are also capable of holding drum magazines with the capacity of over 50 rounds, which is left out by this bill as well. This bill says nothing about limiting the magazine capacity for pistols. Also, what about pistol caliber rifles? These semi-automatic rifles, just like an AR-15, use pistol rounds with the exact magazine as a pistol. Since this bill says nothing about limiting the magazine capacity in pistols, it would not affect these types of rifles because they use the same magazine. Lastly, this bill does not say anything about shotguns. Some of you may think that shotguns cannot hold much ammo. A Saiga 12 gauge with a drum magazine can hold up to 20 rounds of ammunition, which is more devastating than any other gun in close quarters. This bill, once again, does not mention anything about shotguns or limiting the magazine capacity of shotguns. I do not think House Bill 401 should be passed because there are a lot of loopholes within this bill. I agree with the concept of this bill, but it is very poorly written, and I advise you to vote no. Therefore, I rise in opposition of House Bill 401 and strongly urge everyone else to do the same. Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Williams.
I yield my time to Mr. Tchaikovsky.
How much time do you have left?
You have 40 seconds.
Hello, my fellow congressmen and congresswomen. Upon the review of HB 401, I found the various inconclusive ideas but concluded that the bill itself is flawed. The bill was written around the premise of banning high-capacity magazines for assault/hunting rifles, which I believe is the wrong direction as far as limiting magazine capacity. Let's give some real-world examples of why magazine capacity is not a very effective thing to do. According to assaultweapon.info, at the Virginia Tech shooting in 2007, the perpetrator again showed the futility of regulating magazine capacity when he carried 19, 10, and 15 round magazines in his backpack as a carefully planned massacre. Opposing laws to protect the public from massacres.
Time. Thank you. I will now yield 3 minutes to supporting side, and you still have a minute reserved.
I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Anthony.
My fellow congressmen and women, I stand before you today in support of House Bill 401, limiting the magazine capacity of firearms. I would like to reiterate that this bill concerns recreational and hunting firearms only. People of the opposition argue that the government is taking away their guns, but in reality, this bill will save lives. According to a study done by Mother Jones magazine, since 1982, there have been at least 62 mass shootings across the country, with the killings unfolding in 30 states. 25 of these mass shootings have occurred since 2006, and 7 of them took place in 2012. It was also reported that over half of all these mass shooters possessed high-capacity magazines. Since guns cannot be taken away, House Bill 401 provides a compromise that is the only solution. Limiting the magazine capacity is not preventing anyone from owning or shooting a gun. The same amount of ammunition can be bought, just in smaller amounts at a time. Recreational users will not be affected by this compromise, but the people who use them with malicious intent will be. By only being able to shoot 30 bullets before reloading, the gunman has a higher chance of error in reloading, which could provide a window for authorities to take action and prevent any further harm. Extremely skilled marksmen have the ability to change magazines in about 3 seconds. For those who are less skilled and in a pressure situation, the probability of an error such as a jam increases. When a gun jams, authorities will have time to respond appropriately to the situation, ultimately preventing any more violence. While a few seconds to reload may not seem like much, it could be just enough time to save innocent lives, and maybe even your own someday. I yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Rote.
I yield my time to Mr. Lindau.
Before I begin, I would like to say, the opposition says that it can take a skilled marksman only 2 seconds to change their magazine. I would like to say that I can dive behind this. Or I can dive behind a chair in less than 2 seconds and find cover. I stand before my fellow congressmen and women to discuss House Bill 401, limiting firearm magazine capacity. I'm going to talk briefly about why this is a good bill. I personally do not own guns, but I will be one of the first people to shoot down gun bans and heavy restrictions currently thrown around Congress. I do, however, think that this bill is not too drastic. It lowers the amount of ammo to a necessary range for practical and recreational use. Furthermore, it's not too excessive. This bill is a compromise. It puts a new restriction on while not making it terribly inconvenient for the sportsman. Vote yes to House Bill 401. I yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Rote.
I'd like to call to question.
Motion has been suspended because the motion came before the second to yours, so main motion done.
I'd like to call to question.
Motion was seconded. We now go to a vote to call the question. Meredith, will you read the roll?
This is a hand.
You want to do a hand?
All those in favor of calling the question, please raise your hand.
2/3.
That's not 2/3.
I don't know, count 'em.
Calling the question has failed. Time's up. I will now yield 5 minutes for closing statements to the bill sponsors.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by saying that our original bill sponsor, Doug Pulak, is not here to give our closing statement.
Mr. Purlock technically has the floor. He's right over here.
Well, I guess I'm embarrassed. My bad. I'd like to say that one of the things I heard was that the bill was poorly written. To start off here is every bill that we wrote is poorly written because it's the first time we ever wrote a bill. We are learning how to write bills in this class and how to perform this, how the House of Representatives works. Every bill here isn't perfect. We understand that, and we couldn't cover every basis. We also had one page to write a bill. There's bills that go up to 800 pages in the actual Senate and whatnot. So, sorry if we had to cut a few details out. Now, I also want to say that we're not trying to take away anybody's rights. We're just trying to prevent loss of life in America. We don't want Americans to die. So if we can limit magazine capacity by a little bit, it's not going to affect anybody's rights, or if they can shoot animals. I'm sorry if Republicans are offended because I'm trying to take away their right to shoot animals while they hunt. Or if I'm trying to take away rights to carry a firearm, which in Illinois is illegal anyway. There's people who still carry them, and I realize that there's a black market where you can get magazines of higher capacity. There's a black market where you can get anything. You could probably buy a heart if you needed it. Come on, it's a black market. Everything's illegal in the black market. You can get anything there. So that doesn't count. You got to take that argument out. What other arguments were there? Jamming. Jamming can happen anytime. Now, yes, most of the time jamming happens during the performance of firing. But, sometimes there's just that freak accident where once in a while you'll load a magazine wrong and maybe it jams up on you. I don't know. There's always that chance of getting lucky. I support firearms. I want a gun. I want to be able to have my gun to protect. But, if I can limit the magazine capacity to save lives, I'm all for it. This is the land of the free, and I believe that. I yield the remainder of my time to the chair.
Are we going to recess for voting? Okay, we will now move to recess for 3 minutes. Just to remind everybody, we're switching off every other bill. We're going to do 3 minutes for this one and then 1.5 minutes for the next one. And then if we cannot leave the room, please, that'll help us. And if you do leave the room, please try to hurry up. It'll help us out. If we cannot leave the room, please. What? Did someone say something to me?
now, but there's always research. But you can really never know because there's always people being biased.
All right. And also, why is there nothing in the bill against pistols and shotguns? Do you think those are less dangerous?
I'm not really currently aware of all different guns and stuff, but I do like to save as much lives as possible, and you honestly don't need that much to hunt. So.
All right. Thank you.
Just that. Many people have misconceptions about this topic. A lot of people think their school year would be longer if they have a year-round schooling schedule, rather than a traditional schedule. However, the fact is that you would go to school the same amount of days as you already do. The required track would be 3 weeks on and 1 week off. This means that students of a certain school are broken up into 4 different groups. Each group goes to school for 3 weeks at a time and then have a 1-week break. All traditional breaks remain the same, except, of course, summer vacation. You will still have winter and spring break along with other days that you normally get off during traditional schooling. The main difference is that instead of having a 3-month chunk of summer break, it will be broken down into breaks throughout the whole school year. Summer break will still exist, but only last 6 weeks. These breaks that are evenly distributed throughout the school year will allow students to be relieved of the stress that builds up and can give them time to catch up if they have fallen behind. Vacation time plays a large role in year-round schooling, with both advantages and disadvantages. If a parent has children on different tracks, then they will not have the same on and off weeks. However, they will still have traditional breaks together, such as Thanksgiving, winter break, spring break, and summer break. Also, if a teacher has a traditional schooling schedule and they have a child that goes to a school with a year-round schedule, they will not have vacation time together except for the traditional breaks and a shorter summer break. This is the main issue with year-round schooling. However, if this bill is passed and all schools are required to adopt a year-round schooling schedule, then the second problem mentioned would not occur. Overall, though, vacation time will be more flexible and easier to plan with. Along with family matters, it could be harder to find a job for a teen. Many teenagers get a job over summer break, and since it is shortened, they will not have as much time to work as they would like. However, to counter this argument, a teen can get a job and keep it throughout the whole year. They'd work after school is over and could work morning shifts when they are on their breaks. Many teens already work during the school year after school anyway, so year-round schooling would not affect them as much.
Financially, year-round schooling can go either way. On one side, it could be more expensive. Schools would have to be open longer, which would increase maintenance costs up to 10%. Also, school districts would probably have to hire more faculty members or pay teachers more money for working longer periods of time. On the bright side, this could open up new jobs and decrease the unemployment rate. Also, by creating a system with 4 tracks on it, schools can increase their capacity by 33%. This is made possible by having 3 groups of school, or 3 groups in the school and 1 group outside of school at all times. By doing this, 3 groups can fill the maximum carrying capacity of the school, and 1 group would be off on break. And as they go back to school, another group goes off on break. Therefore, they would never go over the total capacity of the facility. This could be a great financial factor because schools will be able to teach more students without having to increase their faculty size. This means schools can accommodate for more children without spending money on building larger and more facilities, overall saving money in the long run. Other than vacation and finances, the actual education of the students can increase. A shorter summer break would mean less time for students to forget information. Less information loss means less time reviewing and more time learning new topics. This could increase test scores and grades dramatically, which is our main goal. All in all, House Bill 110 can only help the U.S. population. We yield the remainder of the time to the chair.
I yield 3 minutes for opposing remarks to Ms. Williams.
I yield my time to Mr. De Leon.
Thank you. I will be reading a speech for another student. Nearly 5.9 million teens ages 16 to 19 had a summer job in 2012, stageoflife.com. The system of year-round schooling would not allow high school students to work because they would be spending all summer in school. Employment opportunities for high school students are best during the months between May and August, debate.com. It is hard for a youth to find a job for a shorter period and in off-season. The continuous 3 months of work are what a majority of students depend on to have money for gas, food, and college tuition. As young adults, having money is a great feeling. Year-round schooling would take that ability away from us. For school employees, maintenance opportunities are reduced. During the summer, school maintenance departments will use the extended period without students and teachers to make major repairs, changes, and construction of buildings. The year-long school session will interfere with major maintenance issues and any repairs that have to be worked on while students and staff are present. Although there will be some cost savings with year-round school, there are other costs associated with it that are not associated with the traditional school schedule. Scheduling and operational costs will increase because the schools will need to be in operation mode year-round. Most year-round schools use multi-track scheduling, and this means that the schools need to facilitate students and staff all year long. The costs in such dramatic and frequent schedule changes are high, and many schools have switched from traditional scheduling to year-round scheduling, only to return back to traditional scheduling. I yield my time to Ms. Semro.
Thank you. Even though some schools have academic success with year-round scheduling, there has been no scientific evidence to prove that students learn more with this type of schedule. There is no conclusive data on whether a year-round school system works as effectively as a traditional school year. The academic data is too scattered. The efficiency rates on the subject also vary. If an actual all year-round school system with increased days spent in the classroom was implemented, it would need to be tracked over a period of years to see whether it would produce similar inconclusive results. There are no definitive results on studies supporting its benefits. DominicanU.com. It does not matter whether children are on holiday a few days or many. They will require a review of the material that they have forgotten. Schools may not be in a condition to handle the needs of the children during the summer heat. Certain summer programs may suffer, such as camps of various types. Specific after-school programs may not have sufficient numbers if the school year alters. Those that do may be out of sync with the performance and competitive year.
Point of order, your time is up.
Thank you.
I have 3 minutes for supporting arguments to Mr. Sloan.
I yield my time to Mr. Rote.
My fellow congressmen and women, I come before you today in favor of House Bill 110, requiring year-round schooling. For that reason, I would like to clear up some misconceptions that many people have about year-round schooling. First and foremost, despite its name, year-round schooling would not increase the amount of time students are in class. According to The Atlantic, average school year in the United States lasts 180 days. House Bill 110 would not change that fact. Instead, the 185 days students spend outside of school would be divided more evenly throughout the entire calendar year, leading to students having 1 week off and every 3 weeks in class. This change to breaks would not affect weekends because the standard school week would still only be 5 days. Secondly, many opponents of the year-round schooling claim that it will make it more difficult for students to participate in extracurricular activities, jobs, or sports. Let's be real. Everyone in this room does something outside of school, whether it be balancing softball and stats or handling both FFA and forensics. This generation of students knows how to multitask. The idea that year-round schooling could keep students from receiving part-time jobs is also preposterous, because many of us here today are able to maintain employment and enrollment. Other issues brought up by opponents of House Bill 110 is that it could negatively affect family life if one student is at a traditional school while another is enrolled in one with the year-round calendar. This makes absolutely no sense because House Bill 110 requires that all schools to adopt year-round schooling. The concern over lost vacation time is also moot because families could easily plan and travel during the scheduled breaks just like they already do in the summer. Finally, my fellow committee members, I ask you to consider something. If year-round schooling had always been a common alternative to traditional school calendars, would we even be having this discussion? Just because what House Bill 110 proposes is different from what we are used to does not mean that it is automatically bad. Consider the words of Nelson Mandela. Education is one of the most powerful weapons you can use to change the world. If we wish to change the world, we must begin reforming our education system. Therefore, I urge you to vote yes on House Bill 110. I yield my time to Ms. Sloan.
I would like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield 3 minutes for opposing arguments to Ms. Williams.
I yield my time to Ms. Driver.
My fellow congressmen and congresswomen, first off, I want to say there's a lot of could-haves in this bill. The speech given said the cost of the school could go up, could go down. Well, I say that if this bill passes, there should be a definite answer. Also, under the permission and cost section of this bill, it states, quote, maintenance costs would increase, end quote. So now I ask, where are these schools going to get this money? If any of you are not aware, Chicago had just shut down 54 schools. So how can we keep increasing these costs? Another aspect to look at is farmers. Farmers are busy during the summer months of June, July, and August doing various tasks of baling hay, harvesting their crops, and getting their animals ready for county fairs. So if this bill was enacted, what would happen to these farm families that rely on their high school children to work 8-hour days in the fields? There are many unanswered questions concerning this bill. Now think about yourselves. During those hot summer months, would you rather be in school and get a week break once a month, or would you rather be enjoying your time outside and get a summer job? I don't know about you, but during the summer I work 30 hours a week, and during the school year I only work about 10 hours a week. So I get most of my money from the summer. Do you like taking family vacations with your family? Well, think again, because that'll probably be more difficult to schedule. So if you're still on the fence about this bill, look at how it's written. First off, it says that we're the people of the first legislative semester, but I'm pretty sure we're in the fourth legislative semester. Also, it states that the capacity of the schools would increase, and I don't see how this would happen, and there are no sources to back up this statement. The bill also does not state how much these costs would increase. That should be included in the bill, which it is not. Overall, this bill is poorly written and is obvious to anyone reading it that it was written last minute, possibly even the night before, and does not deserve to pass this session. I yield my time to Mr. Golden.
I'm reading this speech for someone else. My fellow representatives, I rise in opposition of House Bill 110. There's a plethora of reasons why this bill should fail. To begin with, there would be mass issues as far as budget and staffing. The education system is already in debt as portrayed by the next to nothing salaries teachers earn. In addition, a large portion of schools already struggle to pay teachers a competitive wage, creating difficulty when it comes to keeping high-quality teachers. Adding to the school's financial burden would only hurt the industry further. Teens who need to work to help support themselves or make money for college may have difficulty holding or finding a job. Lastly, how can you take summer vacation away from kids? Growing up, summer vacation is where some of the best childhood memories are made. I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Williams.
I'd like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Sloan for supporting arguments.
I yield my time to Ms. Oakes.
I'm giving this speech on behalf of one of my fellow congressmen. I rise in support of House Bill 110, year-round schooling, because I think it would be better to have more breaks but have them shorter. Many kids say they don't even remember what they learned before summer break. They have to spend almost 2 more weeks reteaching what was already taught, which cuts into the new learning. It would be more beneficial to have more breaks and less longer breaks. Many people are concerned about vacations and not having enough time to be able to do family trips. But honestly, who takes 3-month trips over summer break? No one that I know of. When having 3 weeks on and 1 week off, it would make students less stressed and they would pay way more attention to the teachers. People say that older buildings aren't up to standard for year-round schooling because they don't have air conditioning, or that if their kids are on different track courses, then the parents will have a hard time with work. The best way to fix that is to make all the schools in the areas go on the same schedule as you, so then that doesn't happen. Another thing that is brought up is sports, band, and camps will suffer. But really though, with year-round schooling, it wouldn't, because all the schools around would be on the same 3 weeks on and 1 week off. There wouldn't be any scheduling issues. Therefore, I rise in support of House Bill 110, year-round schooling, because it would be better for our nation. Learning would be easier and less pushed to get done, and less would be forgotten as time went on. I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Sloan.
I would like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Williams for closing remarks.
I yield my time to Ms. Ziller.
I rise in opposition of year-round schooling because I speak on my own behalf when I say not all kids are equal in our country. Sure, a majority of our class lives in town and doesn't have the privilege or ambition to go work on a farm, but I do. If we had year-round schooling, I would never be at school, especially during summer since that is our busiest season. Between baling hay and straw to working with show cattle and then going to the show, not to mention all the other chores I do, where would I find time to go to school? Every day during the summer, I am up at dawn and don't go to bed until all chores are finished. After speaking to fellow classmates, I have learned that they too have the same problem, not as much as working on the farm, but having a job in general. The job they are employed at is only available during the summer, and that is how they make their money to last them until next summer. Having year-round schooling would not only bring our grades down because so many kids are missing, but it would also rob kids of hard-earned money that they earned. According to Deborah Sardo-Brown and Michael Rooney on ClassComp.usa, they said year-round schools do not meet the needs of special education students. Denying a student the right to learn and not meeting the needs to teach a student is a big issue. I believe that Marengo High School does a great job in teaching our special education classes. I think it's great to know that there are schools like ours who have taken the time to teach students with various learning disabilities. If we switch to year-round schooling, we would be denying the right of students to learn in an environment they can handle. Let's be honest here. Who would really want to go to school during the summer? What sounds more appealing? Learning why E equals MC squared, or going swimming with a group of friends and eating ice cream after? Having school during the summer will make it harder for families to take vacation and be able to plan family activities. Another reason year-round schooling would not be beneficial to us is because our students interested in sports will drop. I know a lot of our classmates do sports for clubs or park districts during the summer, and they'd have to choose that or school. I know the main reason people join these clubs is to make them a better player and to meet new people and, of course, for fun. But no matter how much a student loves a sport, the love and need for money will always be greater. Please help me in failing this bill of year-round schooling in our own benefit. I yield my time to Ms. Williams.
I yield the remainder of my time to the speaker.
I yield 4 minutes and 44 seconds to Ms. Sloan.
I yield my time to Mr. Lindau.
I would like to begin by saying that I myself have held a job for 2.5 years during the summer and during the school year. And I am not failing, I am graduating with the rest of you. I know dozens of people on both sides of this aisle and currently in class who are holding a job. And many of them I saw last night at senior awards getting papers saying they got honor roll and high honor roll and got scholarships for college. I will now begin my speech on behalf of another representative. Good afternoon. My fellow representatives, I stand before you in support of House Bill 110 requiring year-round schooling. For too long, our nation has been working with an outdated system while hoping for the best. An international education firm posts an annual worldwide ranking 17th in a worldwide study of developed nations. Implementing year-round schooling can change that. Studies done by the California Department of Education show that student achievement scores improve when those students are attending year-round schools. This is partially attributed to the fact that students experience less information loss when they are given shorter, more frequent breaks. The same study by the CDE went on to say that more frequent breaks allow students opportunities to take remedial lessons when problems occur instead of at the end of the school year. The obvious benefit of this is that issues are addressed specifically when they first begin, instead of having the student retake the entire class after the lessons have advanced beyond the first signs of a problem occurring. Finally, granting students 1 week of break for every 3 weeks of schooling would greatly reduce student stress while keeping student motivation high. How many of us in this room have arrived in a classroom at the start of a new school year, only to struggle because of summer break? We've forgotten much of what we previously learned. How many of us have had to fight our way through a class because a problem occurred in January, but the revision we needed isn't available until June? And finally, many of us have been succumbing to senioritis since freshman year because as semesters draw to a close, the assignments pile up as we are less willing to work, and summer break is still painfully far away. We as students deserve a better school schedule than this outdated one, and we have to be able to keep up and work, and it has to be able to keep up with the needs of American students. I urge you again to rise in support of House Bill 110, requiring year-round schooling, the first step to fixing Americans' education system. Thank you.
At this point,
Point of order.
I yield my time to Ms. Sloan.
At this point, I move to call the question.
Second.
All in favor? We have 2/3. We will now vote on House Bill 110.
Point of order, the speaker still has the floor.
Point of order, I still have the floor. As soon as you voted, please find your seats.
No, that's C over there, because that's where I voted. It's really weird.
Oh, Jesse's over.
We have a few questions. Is there any proof that year-round schooling helps kids forget less of material they learned?
According to the California Department of Education, it does improve test scores.
All right, and also, what do you think that kids who live on farms would do if their work days are taken away from them?
Everybody always adapts to what is needed. They would simply have to do it as well. I've had to do it on many occasions for sports and work. It's the same principle.
All right, thank you.
No problem.
think if I go into trouble if I scream Republican power over like Yeah. Hey dude, nothing personal.
Point of order. The speaker has the floor. This is not a recess. Point of order, Mr. De Leon. The speaker still has the floor.
With 31 yes votes, 59 noes, and 11 abstentions, House Bill 110 fails. Our next bill is going to be House Bill 103, the legalization of euthanasia. I yield 5 minutes for opening statements to the bill sponsors. Point of order.
Should euthanasia be legalized in the United States? Euthanasia is purposefully ending a patient's life when their suffering becomes unbearable. Legalizing it means guaranteeing people have a choice in their death and secures them a sense of dignity at the end of their life. The legalization of euthanasia can reduce healthcare costs that would be available to patients who have a chance of recovery and can benefit from care. People that have a chronic illness or have been in a tragic car accident can have very expensive medical bills. Euthanasia can relieve the high medical bills for the patient's family. Finally, there are many countries in our world that have already legalized euthanasia. Some examples would be Albania, Belgium, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Luxembourg, Japan, Singapore, China, India, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Bangladesh. If these countries can legalize euthanasia, then our country should follow suit and ensures our citizens' right to choice. As bill sponsors, we fully acknowledge the serious nature of an issue like euthanasia holds, which is why House Bill 103 has a clear and strict guideline for how consent should be obtained. 2 patient requests to begin the euthanasia process must be made, at least 15 days apart from each other. After the second request is made, a physician that has not previously been on the patient's case will be brought in to make sure the patient understands the procedure and assess that the patient is of sound mind. After that, the process of euthanization can begin. This is a standard procedure for obtaining patient consent. However, there are additional guidelines in the circumstances of a non-responsive or underage patient, as well as protocol in the case of living wills. When the consent procedure is finalized, the medical procedure that follows for euthanasia will involve 3 drugs to help the patient just drift away painlessly. First, sodium thiopental will be injected into the patient to put them into an induced coma
eliminating their pain. Next, the muscle relaxant is administered to stop the patient's breathing through paralysis of the diaphragm and lungs. The last drug injected is a high dose of potassium chloride for induced cardiac arrest. The cost of all three drugs per person is $83.55, according to the Texas Department of Criminal Justice. With the help of these three drugs, the patient has been put to a peaceful rest and left the world on their own terms with their dignity. Legalizing euthanasia will come with a choice by the patient with 2 requests and a meeting with an outside doctor. This procedure also helps towards high medical costs for the families. We hope you will support our bill and thank you for your time. I yield the remainder of my time to the speaker.
I yield 3 minutes for opposing arguments to Ms. Williams.
I yield my time to Ms. Hart.
Okay, I just want to start out by show of hands, would anyone in this room be comfortable killing someone if they wanted it? Y'all are sick. All right, I just want to start out saying I'm personally going into the medical profession, so I think it's a pretty bold thing to say, well, all doctors can kill someone if they want it, and you can't put doctors in the position to end someone's life. So if you're not comfortable with doing that, then what would be the repercussions be if a doctor refuses? That's one question I have about this bill. All right, here we go. One of the most commonly known oaths today is the Hippocratic Oath, where doctors swear to the widely known principle, do no harm. Today I stand before you in fierce opposition of House Bill 103, the legalization of euthanasia, more commonly known and sugar-coated as assisted suicide or mercy killing. I have just a little insight on what is included in the Hippocratic Oath, which directly pertains to this topic that every doctor takes to become the person allowed to take ours and our loved ones' lives into their hands. All right, most especially must I tread with care in matters of life and death. If it is given me to save a life, all thanks, but it may also be within my power to take a life. This awesome responsibility must not face with great humbleness and awareness of my own frailty. Above all, I must not play God. I will apply, for the benefit of the sick, all measures which are required, avoiding those twin traps of overtreatment and therapeutic nihilism, which means a doctor is to avoid overtreatment or treatment that goes against established laws or ethics. And I think we can all agree that murder and suicide go against general human ethics, and let's not forget, both are illegal for a reason. I will neither give a deadly drug to anybody who asks for it, nor will I make a suggestion to this effect. That's from medicine.net, is a quote from the Hippocratic Oath. This could not be more plainly stated. It is against the Hippocratic Oath to give deadly drugs. Legalizing this would force doctors to tell their patients about all their treatment options so they are fully informed, including the option of taking their own life, which is a suggestion, another contradiction to the oath. Another point brought up is medical bills and how long they can rack up on a long hospital stay. This is a sickening thought to think that families would rather not pay medical bills or at least try because of the astronomical cost of health care. Legalizing euthanasia could potentially put the underprivileged in a very bad position because if they don't have health insurance or very little, what is stopping them from making that decision to pay their $83 to ask a doctor who is responsible for saving their life to end their life claiming they have a serious illness or something as trivial as money? The movement for legalization of assisted suicide is driven by anecdotes of people who suffer greatly in the period before death, but the overwhelming majority of these anecdotes describe either situations for which legal alternatives exist today, or situations in which the
Point of order, your time's up. I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Sloan.
I yield my time to Ms. Lopez.
I'm reading this speech on behalf of a fellow colleague. I rise in support of HB 103, the legalization of euthanasia, because it should be the person's right to pass or not. How would you feel if your family member or even yourself were suffering from an incurable disease? Would you want them to be able to stop suffering, or would you want to watch them suffer on their deathbed? Many people say that it will weaken our society, but the question is how? I don't think that it will weaken our society because all it is doing is helping someone end their life their own way instead of suffering. Also, they say that it gives doctors too much power. Really, a doctor can't say yes to doing it until a specialist is brought in to determine if the patient is able to be put to rest. Do you want to see someone suffer on their deathbed? Because they shouldn't have to suffer and be in pain. Personally, I work at the nursing home in town, and I watch people suffer in pain lying on their deathbed every day. So many people lay there asking for it to be over, saying they're ready to go and want to be out of pain. Even if they can't talk or move, they should be able to have the ability to end their own lives if they want to. Therefore, I rise in support of HB 103, the legalization of euthanasia, so that people that are suffering so much that can't live and are ready to go can be put out of their misery. Thank you. I yield my time to Ms. Sloan.
I would like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Williams.
I yield my time to Ms. Hart.
All right, I'm just going to finish this real quick. It is legal in every U.S. state for any individual to create an advance directive that requires the withdrawal or treatment under any conditions the person wishes. It is legal for a patient to refuse any treatment or to require any treatment to be withdrawn. It is legal to receive sufficient painkillers to be comfortable, even if they might hasten death. And if someone who is imminently dying is in significant discomfort, it is legal for the individual to be sedated to the point that discomfort is relieved. Why should we take all of this a step
Madam
further?
Speaker, I request a point of order. In the RAM, it clearly states that no representative can speak twice on a bill.
Point of information.
I yield my
where in
floor
the
to
RAM?
Ms. Marsh then.
Point of information, where in the RAM does it state that?
If someone could give me their RAM, I can flip to the exact page and give you the subsection.
Thank you. Yeah.
Point of order.
Just start from here and then just finish it.
Representatives, Marengo High School Legislative Semester RAM. Article 4, Section 4.1, subsection, let's see here, H. A representative may speak only once on a bill. If there are no other requests from another representative to speak, then a representative may speak twice on the same bill. I believe my opponent has more than one speech lined up for this issue.
Ms. Williams, if you have any other speakers, they must speak now.
I yield my time to Ms. Marsh.
I'm going to finish this speech on Ms. Hart's behalf. She just yielded the floor to Ms. Marsh. Okay, can you yield it back to me, though? Yield the floor back. Give it back to me. Give it back to me. Why should we take all of this a step further and make it legal to take one's own life if they have a serious illness? Until we can define serious illness, this bill is incredibly flawed. What is serious to one person may just be another small obstacle to another. Aside from the fact that murder, no matter how nicely put, is a clear violation of the Hippocratic Oath, this bill only vaguely states that serious illnesses can be considered and the patient must be of sound mind, which has no true, widely accepted, clear definition. Would you really say that someone who wants to die is of sound mind, someone who has been battling cancer or some other aggressive illness for a long period of time? Why would they be of sound mind? Would you? And now I'm going to move on to the other speech. My fellow congressmen and women, today I rise before you in opposition to House Bill 103, the federal legalization of euthanasia. Not only does euthanasia violate the Hippocratic Oath that doctors take prior to beginning practice, which states, and above all, I will not play a hand at God, but it also causes violation of many ethical standards. Imagine your mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, or anyone else that you care about being in a life or death situation and the doctor not doing everything in his or her power to save them because letting them die or euthanizing them is the cheaper and easier option for the doctor, and the doctor thinks that this is what's best for your family. I understand that these sponsors are proposing 2 euthanasia requests 15 days apart, along with a counseling session with an outside physician, but let's be honest with each other and with ourselves. We have unethical people and doctors in this country that are going to cheat the system, use euthanasia, and abuse these people's lives as the easy way out of situations. In paragraph 3 of the sponsor's position paper, they state, lastly, some argue that a price cannot be put on human life, but that is not what House Bill 103 proposes. However, economic gain must be considered in these hard economic times. To me, this seems like a contradictory statement, and that the bill is being proposed with economic gain as a background motive. The legalization of euthanasia with the purpose of economic gain stated anywhere in the background
comes down to the government being paid to murder innocent people. Legalizing euthanasia comes at a cost that can be raised to whatever the government wishes it be raised to, which in turn can cause the government to actually make a profit off of these people's lives and puts a price on the lives that we are all living. Calling euthanasia assisted suicide is a way of sugarcoating what it really is, which is murder. Euthanasia as a whole will not benefit our country in any way. The idea of putting people out of their suffering contradicts nature in the way that things were supposed to be. Suffering is a part of life, and cheating life to save people from the bad experiences that come along with living.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Sloan.
I yield my time to Mr. Easterline.
My fellow congressmen and women, I'm here to tell you that HB 103, legalization of euthanasia, is not only a good thing, but should be common sense to pass. If people want to go out on their own terms, who's to stop them from their freedom of choice? I personally feel that anyone who is terminally ill should have this option. I feel that this bill is written rather well and makes sense. The procedures required to follow through with euthanasia are very well drawn out. To me, it is unfair to tell someone who is suffering day in and day out with an incurable disease that they have to suffer through the pain and hope for a cure or something to come up. Now, I know it is never an easy option to say goodbye to a loved one, but you have to realize what is happening to them. Do you want to watch a loved one suffer? No. So I urge you all to pass this bill and allow people to have the peace that they deserve. My remaining time to Ms. Sloan.
I'd like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Williams.
I yield my time to Ms. Adams.
Assisted suicide is legal in Oregon and Washington, but also around the nation, the Right to Die movement has struggled. According to Frontline News, since 1992, efforts to legalize euthanasia have failed in California, Michigan, Maine, and most recently in Massachusetts. Meanwhile, 41 states have passed laws making it a crime to assist in suicide. As was stated by the opposing side, however, many other countries around the world have already legalized this practice. What they leave out telling you is how effective the process has been over the years since passing the legislation. For example, the first two countries that legalized euthanasia include the Netherlands and Belgium in 2002. In the Netherlands, legalizing voluntary assisted suicide for those with terminal illness has spread to include non-voluntary euthanasia for many who have no terminal illnesses, according to euthanasia.com. Half the killings in the Netherlands are now non-voluntary, and the problems for which death is now the legal solution include such things as mental illness, permanent disability, and even old age. In addition, recent studies considering the Belgian euthanasia law found that 32% of the assisted deaths are done without request, and 47% of the assisted deaths go unreported in Belgium. Another recent study found that even though nurses are prohibited from doing euthanasia, they are euthanizing their patients. And yet, there has not been an attempt in prosecution for abuses of the Belgian euthanasia law since the passing of such legislation. According to LifeSiteNews.com, euthanasia is out of control in Belgium. 2012 statistics indicate that there was a 25% increase in the number of assisted deaths. The study also found that 32% of the assisted deaths are done without request, indicated that people who died by euthanasia without request were incompetent, over the age of 80, and living in a hospital. With this in mind, passing this bill would only establish a great risk that America could abuse this system. The guiding principle of medical ethics is to do no harm. A physician must not be involved in harming their patient. Without this principle, the medical profession would lose a great deal of trust, and admitting that killing is an acceptable part of a doctor's role would likely increase the danger of involuntary euthanasia, not reduce it. Since the opposition said it themselves already, and I quote directly from the paper, economic gain must be considered in these hard economic times. If they believe this to be true, then who knows what doctors will be capable of. Like I mentioned earlier, half of the killings in the Netherlands are now non-voluntary, meaning that the consent of the individual concerned is unavailable. And the problems for which death is now the legal solution includes such things as mental illness, permanent disability, and even old age. The power of medicine should not be used against vulnerable people who may be manipulated or under pressured into ending their lives. Even in their final days, they should feel valued, not burdensome and desperate. We should provide adequate health care and support them with financial resources to secure what they need. If this bill is passed, euthanasia may lead to involuntary euthanasia, killing people who are thought of as undesirable and worthless, which is a sickening thing to result to. I yield my time to Ms. Williams.
I yield the remainder of my time to the speaker.
Yield 5 minutes and 48 seconds to Ms. Sloan.
This speech and this issue means a lot to me, and it's not just because this is my final issue group. Growing up, my grandfather was one of the most important people in my lives. He was the biggest influence in everything I do, and he's the reason I stand before you today as minority floor leader, because my grandpa was a political junkie. That's why I was devastated when he got sick in my sophomore year. In the span of 6 months, he went from attending every play I did at the school, driving me to and from every activity, to being on a ventilator to the point where he could no longer speak to me. My family was there every day, and every day we were praying that something would happen. But eventually, he decided, it's enough. I don't want to live out my life hooked up to machines and drugged up so I don't recognize people's faces. And he didn't even get the chance to say this to us. It had to be written on a whiteboard. He died 2 years ago because a physician respected his wish and removed the breathing tube from him. That was by far the hardest thing I've ever experienced in my life, but I'm glad he
Point
had
of
the
order.
freedom.
I'm sorry about this, but a bill speaker or bill sponsor cannot speak on a bill.
Thank you. I yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Berman.
Thank you. I would like to start off by saying that I'm very proud of this entire class for not bringing up poorly written bills. Secondly, I'd like to bring up that a fellow colleague of mine who I am extremely close friends with and have been for years had to be put through sitting next to his father on his deathbed when his father, for the entire night before he died, could tell his son how much pain he was in, how his entire body felt like it was just expanding and like he felt like he was just going to burst like a balloon, how his veins just hurt when the blood pulsed through his body. And he wanted the plug to be pulled. He wanted to be able to let go. He said, and I quote, "I am in so much pain, I wish all I could do was let go." He said this to his son on his deathbed the night that he died. Now, if he were able to let go earlier, he wouldn't be put through the pain. His family wouldn't have had to see this pain that he was in. Now, I realize that my other fellow colleague here also had to be put through this devastating time in which her grandfather was in this pain. Her grandfather was not able to emphasize his pain because his vocal capabilities had gone away. But yet, my other colleague and his family had to go through the treacherous time of hearing how much pain he was in, all his suffering. So I encourage you to vote yes for euthanasia, to end the pain of not only the person, but the family in which this person lives with and this family has to deal with this person. Thank you.
I yield the floor to Mr. Lindau.
I stand before you with no formal speech written. I speak from my heart. I raised my hand earlier, and I was mocked for it. I was called sick because I would end someone's suffering. Am I inhumane for that? Am I inhumane for not wanting to watch somebody go through the pain that was just described to me? Am I not just as good a person as anyone who sits down here or up there? I beg you, every one of you, from the pit of my heart, vote yes for this bill. I yield my time to Ms. Sloan.
I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Schultz.
I would just like to say that this bill allows the freedom of choice. And isn't America built off of freedom? This is the land of the free. I yield my time to Ms. Sloan.
I yield the remainder of my time to Madam Chairman.
I yield 5 minutes for closing statements to the bill sponsors.
Just imagine if one of your loved ones was suffering from a serious illness and have become non-responsive to treatments. As the days go on, their suffering would increase and their choice would end their life their own way and not the illness's way. Many families are very emotional when it comes to this topic because they would like to see their loved ones continue the fight. But the families do not understand their loved one's suffering is not going to end. Also, that when the loved one has come turns to death, that they have won the battle in the end. Would you want your loved one to keep suffering, or do you want your loved one to leave the world on their own terms? With that in mind, I want to share you a personal story of mine. Freshman year, my father was diagnosed with cancer. He continued the fight, and he still continues the fight. But to this day, it has become worse. His cancer is now in his lungs and heart area, and some days it's difficult to see him get out of bed. He has told us many times that when his day has come, he will die. And he has come to terms with that. And I feel that's important to know. But he said that he doesn't want to be hooked up to any ventilators because he will not live that way. He does not want to live that way, and he chooses that. I feel like it is one's choice to end their life or to continue the fight. It was stated that it's selfish for families to use euthanasia just so they don't have to pay high medical bills. The family has no say in it. It's all the patient's. The doctors have a say, but it's the patient needs to request it. So it's not really, the doctors can't make this decision for the patient, so it will not be done involuntarily.
And then I want to share a personal story too. My grandma was diagnosed with colon cancer, and she was a strong woman. She was my role model, and I could see the pain she was in. She wouldn't tell us, but she was in a lot of pain, and she passed away my freshman year, and she was, my parents and the entire family was there with her the whole day, and then she told them to go out to lunch, and she passed away. She didn't want us to see her pass away, but she wanted to go. So I think this is a great bill because it gives the patient a choice. It lets them end their life the way they want to end their life.
We yield the time back to the floor.
We will now go into recess for 1.5 minutes.
Okay, now we're interviewing the Chief Executive of this fall session, Jacob Ulbrich. Hi, Jacob.
Hi, Sophie.
Okay, so with this particular topic, we need to back up. With this particular topic, which way are you leaning, if you care to disclose?
I am for euthanasia, but it's up to me to be impartial over the bill.
Okay, good answer. Okay, so overall, looking at all the different bills that have come through, who do you, did any speech stand out to you?
All of Jeff's. All of them. They were just so passionate, even when he was freeballing it. I also like the closing argument for affirmative action when they addressed all the opposing arguments made throughout the bill. I thought that was very well addressed.
Okay. And are you enjoying the political quarrels?
Oh, I am deeply enjoying it. It's a lot more back and forth than my semester. That's for sure.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chief Executive.
Thanks, Sophie.
Yep.
for 11 million undocumented immigrants would cost $6.3 trillion over the next 50 years. During their lifetimes, these immigrants turned citizens would take far more in federal services and benefits than they end up paying in taxes. Illegal aliens are largely poor and uneducated and drain the welfare and public education systems, according to a survey from the Center for Immigration Studies. The survey shows that about 40 million immigrants live in the United States. A little less than 28%, or 11 million, have crossed the border illegally and are flouting U.S. law. Illegal aliens are about 3.5% of the U.S. population.
According to the CIS, about 28% of all immigrants are in the country illegally. Roughly half of Mexican and Central American and one-third of South American immigrants are here illegally. Given that about 11.7 million Mexican immigrants live in the United States, about 5.85 million are here illegally. Mexicans are the largest provider of immigrants, legal and illegal, to the United States. Its government is notorious for encouraging illegal immigration to the United States and has issued pamphlets showing the illegal aliens how to evade American authorities.
Given that illegals tend to earn less money and live in poverty, they're also prone to use welfare. Nationally, 47% of illegals use welfare, 39% use food assistance, and 35% use Medicaid. According to CIS, high rates of Medicaid and food assistance used by illegal immigrant households is not caused by an unwillingness to work on part of the illegals. Because half of all illegal aliens didn't finish high school, their average income in modern economy will be very low.
As one would imagine, a population of more than 10 million illegal aliens is a crushing burden on public schools. Illegal aliens are 1.3 million of the school-age population. Taxpayers provide some $40 billion to educate illegal aliens and their offspring. Does the United States really need to be spending this large amount of money on people who are not even citizens of our nation?
Unsurprisingly, most illegal aliens do not carry health insurance. About 62% of illegal aliens or about 6.5 million lack health insurance. Compared to 14% of Americans, illegal aliens also account for a large share of the total uninsured population. CIS reported nationally 14.6% of all uninsured persons in the United States are estimated to be illegal aliens or young children of illegal immigrants.
We urge you to support an increase in border control because our nation needs it. The drain that the illegal immigrant population creates on the United States economy is evident. Increasing border control will stabilize the nation, allowing our law-abiding citizens to live a better life. The addition of agents guarding the entire United States border, along with the newest technology, would greatly reduce the chance of illegal aliens crossing the border. The redirection of the $40 billion that are being spent to educate illegal aliens currently should instead be used to construct a barrier along the southwestern border of the United States. This barrier would cost approximately $10 billion. This would greatly benefit the United States in the long run. The United States needs to take a stand and make this country our own again.
Thank you for your time.
Point of order, do you yield your time?
Point of order, where do you yield your time?
I yield 3 minutes for opposing remarks to Ms. Sloan.
I would just like to start off by saying in their sponsor's speech, they said this would cost $10 million. In their bill, they say it costs $12 billion, and neither one of those are sourced. With that said, I yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Easterline.
My fellow congressmen and women, I come to you today opposing House Bill 104, increasing border control. To start off with, this bill is very poorly written. It's common sense to place some numbers in, but there are none. No resources whatsoever. And also, have the bill sponsors completely forgotten about the 5,525 miles of border to the north? Keep in mind, the southern border is only 1,933 miles long and only affecting 4 states compared to the 13 in the north. Also, in the permissions and costs of the bill states that the construction of a fence would approximately cost $12 billion. Sponsors have no source for this number, so how are we to know if it will cost less or more? The sponsors also, in their speech, stated that the taxpayers provide some $40 billion to educate illegals and their offspring. Why should the American people spend an additional $12 billion on a fence that may or may not work? Also, as stated in the bill considers the illegal aliens crossing the border as terrorists. Have any of you heard of a Mexican terrorist? I feel that this bill is only trying to persuade people with emotion and patriotism, not with facts. So we want to focus on the problem at hand in America or waste our time and money on a fence that should work. Please vote no for House Bill 104. Give my remaining time to Ms. Sloan.
I yield my time to Ms. Grafer.
I am here today to oppose House Bill 104, increasing border control. I believe that as a whole, America has more to worry about than the border between the U.S. and Mexico. I think it would require a substantial amount of resources and money that the United States does not have. This extra money to guard the border will be taken out of money needed for other important aspects of life, such as education. It will also not significantly change the routes immigrants will take. It will only make it more dangerous for both the illegal immigrant and the patrol guard. Another reason, America was founded off the idea of freedom. Freedom of everything: speech, education, liberty, and happiness. By putting up a border, it will only make it harder for other people to achieve the American dream. I believe that House Bill 104 should not be passed and that America should spend the money on other more necessary things. I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Sloan.
I'd like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Williams.
I yield my time to Ms. Hart.
I stand in front of you today in rise of support for increasing border control. First, I would like to address the fact that this bill does focus on the Mexican-American border. Before you can question why this does not quite pertain to the northern border or other sources of illegal immigration, I can present some facts that will assure you it is not just a bill just targeting a specific race. According to the National Public Radio, it was estimated that over 10 million illegal immigrants live in the United States as of June 2005 when the article was written. Of these, 57% are from Mexico and 24% are from other areas of Latin America. This makes 81% of illegal immigrants originated from our southern neighbors. More recently, according to Fox News article from 2010, there are an estimated 13 million illegal immigrants, although it is unknown what percentage of these are from Mexico and Latin America. According to the Associated Press, as of the end of the 2010 fiscal year, the Departments of Homeland Security reported achieving some level of operational control of 44% of the nearly 2,000-mile border, according to a Government Accountability Office report this year. Operational control was defined as the ability to detect and respond to cross-border illegal activity. 44% control is not nearly enough to even know how many immigrants are coming into our country illegally every day, let alone prevent this from happening. Only having control over 44% of the border means only 880 miles, leaving 1,120 miles fair game. This may sound like Also from the Associated Press, a recently proposed bill included the cost for improving the immigration system, $1.5 billion for fencing, $2 billion for other border measures, and $2 billion to help the Commission of Border State Officials do its work of securing and surveilling the border. This may sound like quite a bit of money, but the cost of supporting illegal immigrants is often overlooked. In a paper from the Congressional Budget Office, analysis from several states indicate that the cost of educating students who do not speak English fluently were 20 to 40% higher than the cost incurred for native-born students. The problem with this is both state and federal courts have ruled that states may not refuse to provide free public education to a student on the basis of his or her immigration status. A shocking statistics from a study done by the Federation for American Immigration Reform concluded that the cost of harboring illegal immigrants in the United States is a staggering $113 billion a year. Although it is true that many illegal immigrants do pay taxes, the tax revenues that unauthorized immigrants generate for state and local governments do not offset the total cost of services provided to those immigrants. Most of the estimates found that even though unauthorized immigrants pay taxes and other fees to state and local jurisdictions, the resulting revenues offset only a portion of the costs incurred by those jurisdictions for providing services related to education, healthcare, and law enforcement. By no means is this bill the only solution to the flawed immigration system of America, but it is a more crucial start in controlling the flow of immigration in order to later focus on regulating.
Point of order, your time's up.
All right.
Ms. Williams, yeah.
You have 3 minutes, Ms. Sloan.
I am here in opposition of House Bill 104 to increase border control. While illegal immigration is a problem in the United States, the proposed legislation is neither efficient nor frugal. First and foremost, we must realize our ideas on illegal immigration are inaccurate. The Wall Street Journal reported that 40% of illegal immigration occurs when aliens overstayed time issues on their legal visas. Building a fence across our southern border will do nothing to address this, nor will it affect the amount of immigrants who cross
Point
the
of order,
border.
you already spoke on this bill.
When did I speak on this bill?
Point of order.
I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Schultz.
Building a fence across our southern border will do nothing to address this, nor will it affect the amount of immigrants who cross the border by car or boat. U.S. News puts it best. The value of a brick and mortar structure of a modern technologically advanced era is clearly limited, if not altogether obsolete. Secondly, the rate of illegal immigration has actually been decreasing. The Pew Hispanic Center reported that the population of undocumented immigrants reached its peak in 2007 and has steadily decreased by 1 million undocumented aliens since. However, CBS News reports that this is not a reflection on the success of the U.S. border control. Instead, the still decreasing rate of the illegal immigration is attributed to the weakened U.S. economy. And speaking of the United States economy, let's talk about the astronomical amount of money a project like this would cost. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection estimated that it costs roughly $16 million per mile to build a border fence. That adds up to $22.4 billion for a single fence across the remaining 1,400 miles spanning the border. Customs and Border Protection also estimated that it would cost $6.5 billion to deploy, operate, and maintain the existing border fence over its expected lifetime, which is only a short 20 years. These figures do not account for the costs associated with the addition of security agents and the newest technology promised in HB 104. $28.9 billion is a number terribly high for a nation facing a deficit, especially when we consider that the proposed fence would be inefficient at preventing the techniques being used by the dwindling number of individuals immigrating illegally. My fellow representatives, I ask you to think of these things when we go to vote. Stand in opposition of HB 104 and do not accept a poor solution to the problem of border control. I yield my time to Ms. Sloan.
I'd like to reserve the remainder of my time.
Your time just ran out. I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Williams.
I would like to yield my time to Ms. Mackey.
All right. My dad works for the Lake County Health Department, and they provide a lot of social services. That's stuff like welfare. When they're giving out your tax money, they can't ask if the recipient is legal or not. I don't want to give an exact number because I don't have an exact number, seeing as they can't actually ask or have any evidence of it. But my dad would probably estimate around 50% are illegal, and that's all of your tax money that's going to them. I'd like to yield my time to Ms. Ziller.
I rise in support of increasing the border control because having illegals in our country cuts our jobs and takes our money we worked hard to earn. Picture this. You're a senior in high school working at a job to pay for you and your girlfriend or boyfriend to go to prom. The second day of your job, the boss tells you you're fired. Finding out you are fired only to be replaced by someone who will work less for you, or who will work less, is a slap in the face. Now you're an adult, working a job to support your family and send your oldest kid to college. Your boss comes in and tells you yet again you have been fired because someone else will work cheaper. Now you have no way of supporting your family and sending your oldest to college. Illegal immigrants are taking our jobs and working for cheaper because they know they can get away with it. If people want to come to America, let them, but they have to go through the set process to get here.
According to Business Insider, there are 11 million undocumented citizens, and this has increased by 1/3 since 2000. Also, in 2010, the taxpayers spent $4.3 billion on health care for undocumented citizens. According to the Center of American Progress, our tax revenue would increase by 4.5 to 5.4 trillion if we legalized the undocumented citizens. Of all 50 states, there are 5 states that illegal aliens consider to be the gateway state to settle. The 5 states include Illinois, California, Texas, Florida, and New York. Undocumented citizens need to be taken care of. We as U.S. citizens are tired of losing our jobs and money to pay for the health of citizens that are not willing to work for their legal freedom. Also, Illinois has just recently passed allowing to let illegal immigrants to get their license to drive a motor vehicle. Now you are putting them behind a motorized vehicle to potentially kill your family members because they are driving recklessly and uninsured. How would you feel if a police officer came up to you and said your family member died because an illegal alien was driving recklessly? I would feel outraged and angry. This is America. Earn your way into this country or go home. I yield my time to Ms. Williams.
Point of order.
Point of order, your time is up. I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Sloan.
I yield my time to Mr. Franks.
I rise in opposition of House Bill 104, increasing border control. This bill proposes that the United States hires more security agents and builds a fence that covers the entire southern border. A timetable is not given for how long this would take to build. The bill also states that the fence would cost approximately $12 billion. However, no sources were cited. I researched the cost and found from the NewYorkTimes.com that building a border-length fence would cost around $30 billion and would take 10 to 15 years to build. The $30 billion does not even include acquiring land or the expense of maintaining a fence that is exposed to constant efforts by illegal crossers to bore through it or under it to bring it down. Richard F. Cortez, the mayor of a Texas border town of McAllen, noted that much of the state's border is defined by rivers. He quotes, "It is a winding river," Mr. Cortez, a political independent, said in an interview. "Where in the world are you going to put fencing? To propose that suggests ignorance of the border and the terrain. Furthermore, preventing immigrants from crossing the border has little to no impact on stopping them from entering the U.S. Rather than shutting them out of the country, the United States could develop a comprehensive immigration reform policy that would bring in revenue by increasing workers as opposed to draining the taxpayers' funds for something that might work. Illegal immigrants provide much more to this country than we give them credit for. According to CNN.com, the total number of unauthorized immigrants in the United States labor force is 8 million. They make up 5.2% of the labor force in 2010. Illegal immigrants are often working in jobs that most people choose unemployment over. Deporting these people would leave a huge void in the labor force, and our GDP would take a severe hit. I urge you to vote no on House Bill 104.
I yield my time to Mr. Huerta.
To the previous speaker talking about the job losses, it goes back to your work ethic. So a little advice, work a little harder. And then we're debating on the bill itself. House Bill 104 is very poorly written, as previously stated. Why does every bill in the packet has at least one paragraph per part? The longest for this bill is 2 sentences. So what are we debating on? For HB 104, a physical barrier is not the answer. To build a wall along the border, it will not cost $12 billion as stated in the bill. It will cost around $49 billion over the expected 25 lifespan of the fence. A little notice study the Research Service released in December notes
Point of order, your time's up. I yield 3 minutes, Ms. Williams.
I would just like to point out that all of you guys have different costs for the fence estimate as well, so with that, I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Tucker.
I'm reading on behalf of a congresswoman. Increasing the border control is an important step towards immigration reform. With the extent of drug wars between the border and large number of illegal immigrations draining money from the United States, this issue needs to be addressed. According to the White House archives, on October 26, 2006, U.S. President George W. Bush signed the Secure Fence Act of 2006. The Act's goal is to help secure America's borders to decrease illegal entry, drug trafficking, and security threats by building 700 miles of physical barriers along the Mexico-United States border. Additionally, the law authorizes more vehicle barriers, checkpoints, and lighting, as well as authorizes the Department of Homeland Security to increase the use of advanced technology like cameras, satellites, and unmanned aerial vehicles to reinforce infrastructure at the border. Ultimately, this bill proposes that we extend the Secure Fence Act and increase the range of the fence, amount of security guards, and install the newest technology. People who oppose increasing border control say that it is not an effective strategy to prevent illegal immigration because the fence is not a continuous barrier and can be climbed over or dug under in some areas. They also argue that the costs of building of the fence and of all the renovations is unnecessary focus for national funding. In addition, many Americans feel that we should be sending a message of freedom and hope to those seeking a better way of life, instead of hanging a "Keep Out" sign on our borders fences. I understand why many Democrats would oppose this Republican bill. There is no lie that it harms the spread of diversity and opportunity for the United States to be a safe haven for immigrants. However, those must not be significant enough of reasons for a Democratic president if our Democratic president supports the fence. According to the Wall Street Journal, President Obama supports the fence as long as it is a part of a larger strategy on border security that includes more job opportunities and an increased use of technology. Along with opponents focusing on the financial burden increasing the fence will have, they fail to realize that the State of Colorado Alliance for Immigration Reform, illegal aliens are costing U.S. taxpayers a net loss of at least $70 billion per year. They also drain government spending by overburdening social welfare, health, and educational programs. Guarded and electronically monitored fences along the U.S. land borders would cost about $10 billion per year. How does this compare to $70 billion per year in net losses to U.S. taxpayers? Besides the financial benefits of fewer illegal immigrants and surplus of career opportunities, proponents of the bill believe that it will increase the probability of apprehension or arresting illegal immigrants crossing the border. Increased border control would encourage those who want to enter the country to pursue legal channels and help contain the illegal drug trade pouring into the country from Mexico. New York Times says that Arizona has been an epicenter for crossings by illegal immigrants for several years. Last year, authorities apprehended 8,600 people trying to enter the U.S. illegally. The number of people caught crossing San Diego's border illegally has dropped dramatically. In the early 90s, about 600,000 people attempted to cross the border illegally. After the construction of a fence and increased border controls, that number dropped to just 153,000 in 2007. To continue the successful statistics, Wall Street Journal found that since construction of the wall began, apprehensions were down 18%.
Point of order, your time is up. I yield 5 minutes for closing statements to the bill sponsors.
U.S. for the source of the fence, that'd be sa.gov. Thank you. There was also pointed out, and maybe a rhetorical question, I'm not sure, but it said, has anyone ever seen a Mexican terrorist? I ask you, have you ever seen a Mexican illegal immigrant? Also, the source of the fences was a little different overall. We are spending $40 billion currently on education for illegal immigrants. So anything under $40 billion would basically be of no cost because we're already spending that money to educate these illegal immigrants. I urge you to vote yes to increase border control. Currently, only 61% of the illegal aliens that are attempting to cross the border illegally are intercepted. Also, smuggling illegal aliens across the border is now a $6.6 billion industry for Mexican gangs. As the U.S. border security has increased, the gangs are devising more ingenious ways to sneak the illegal aliens across the border. The increase in agents guarding the border would limit the number of illegal aliens entering the United States and also create jobs for citizens of the United States. This bill is strictly about increasing border control. It all starts with a solution to keep those that would not be in this country out of this country. It will take time, but this is a step that is needed for the people of the United States of America.
2 points I'd like to make real quick. Somebody over here said immigrants, like, I don't know, they take white people's jobs or whatever, or, I'm not trying to be racist or anything, but, they said it's about work ethic, and it's really not about that. It's just about how much they work for. And you guys are pointing out a bunch of stuff about how everything is in America. Like, what about the people that are already in America? When you have a cut, do you just keep wiping the blood, or do you put a Band-Aid on it?
All right, I want to point out that in 30 years, when an uneducated illegal immigrant takes your job, I'm going to laugh at you.
Point of order,
the
civil
remainder of my time to the
discourse.
chair.
Do you guys yield your time?
We will now recess for 3 minutes.
Point of order, recess is ended. Everybody go to your posts to vote now, please. I don't know what I'm doing. You're fine. You had to go to track. Madam Speaker. Don't worry, I'm not going to be like a jerk.
Good, Jeff, how are you? That's good. What was this increase on border control?
Now interviewing Cole Quick. Oh, you're okay. What's your name?
Hayden Fruin.
And Hayden Fruin. All right. So, wasn't the United States founded to provide solace for oppressed people?
I didn't hear the question. What was the question?
Wasn't the United States founded to provide solace for oppressed people?
Yeah, but...
Okay. Would you agree that it is hard to apply to be a United States citizen?
Yeah, but in the same sense, you still got to follow the rules, I guess.
That's true. But with that being said, are we making the Foundation of America invalid by rejecting people who want to be citizens but aren't allowed?
It's one thing to want to be to want to be a citizen, and it's another thing to come here and just take the money and not be a citizen.
Okay. Oh, excuse me, Nicole. We're interviewing. That's okay. And how would you respond to someone saying that by denying someone citizenship would be denying a human right?
It's not denying any rights. It's citizen. It's citizens' rights, not denying human rights, I guess.
Okay, that's a good point. Okay, and do you want to cleanse America of illegal immigrants, and how would you do that?
Like I said before, it's wiping up the blood is like, I don't know.
It's not going to stop the cut. You got.
All right, do you want to say anything?
Nah, I'm good.
All right, thanks, guys.
enhanced techniques, and interrogators must be screened. House Bill 405 is changing the frequency of the use of enhanced techniques. Along with that, removing the requirement for written permission before each use. We believe that whoever is conducting the interrogation is capable of deciding when enhanced techniques are necessary. Using the more physical approach will lead to more information being uncovered, which will help protect Americans from a devastating attack.
Although increasing interrogation methods can have many benefits, there are some negatives. For example, the military budget may need to be increased, which may result in raising taxes. However, after further research, there is no information to suggest increase in taxes. Also, it is believed that these methods are considered unconstitutional and a direct violation of someone's human rights. However, according to Bill Harlow from the CIA, the training for the military survival includes the majority of the techniques done. Because the people in the military is interrogating are doing the same things to our soldiers. Not only do our soldiers go through the techniques suggested in House Bill 405, it wants us to use more often. Harlow went to say that there are techniques done that are not nearly as intense as they are shown in movies such as Zero Dark 30. Also, we went to say that enhanced techniques played an important role in the fight against Al-Qaeda. Another concern is that the information would not become evident as quickly and as we would like. But Harlow said that after the enhanced techniques were used, the results came fairly quickly. Increasing interrogation methods may have a couple of questionable outcomes, but they are well worth it. Violating someone's human rights that could be holding valuable information on an attack does not seem as bad when considering our safety. The government should care as much about American safety as they do the bad guys.
Again, the bill's purpose is to limit the time before interrogation methods begins to 2 weeks with no permission needed prior to enhanced interrogation techniques. There would be no tax increase for this bill. This would be beneficial to the United States as a whole. The military would be gaining more information in a shorter period of time and keeping the citizens of the United States more safe. There will be medical personnel on staff to ensure the safety of the interrogation subject and will overlook the whole procedure. Our military undergoes everything that would be done to any interrogation subject during their training. Other countries do the same thing to our soldiers. We are on the defense. This is not offense. Again, think of the safety of Americans instead of the rights of those who are trying to harm us. I yield the remainder of my time to the floor.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Sloan for opposing argument.
I yield my time to Ms. Felgar.
I rise in opposition of House Bill 405 to decrease restriction on interrogation methods. This bill is a proposal to increase interrogation methods used by the U.S. military. The techniques they would use include physical and mental harm. The military would be able to utilize the enhanced techniques to obtain more information. The term enhanced techniques is just a fancy way to say torture. There was a post by Anonymous on debate.org, and I quote, "Should we be friendly to terrorists when they have plans to demolish our men, women, and children? No, we do what we have to keep this country free," end quote. In reality, the only way we know if someone is a terrorist is if they have already done something to harm this country in any way. Being friendly to a terrorist? Of course not. But being friendly to the people in this country is a must. To interrogate someone is to give them to talk and tell you what they know. These enhanced techniques will do the opposite. If someone is being tortured and they're in any type of pain, they will say what you want to hear to get out of it. Torture extracts obedience, not truth, and it is a mark upon our country's honor. We cannot possibly believe that this is morally or ethically permissible to defend the rights of our citizens by violation of those non-citizens via torture. The U.S. military should be above such horrendous treatment of enemy combatants. In October 2007 Rasmussen poll, 27% of Americans that were surveyed said the U.S. should torture prisoners captured in the fight against terrorism, while 53% said they should not. Respondents in 2012 are more pro-waterboarding, pro-threatening prisoners with dogs, pro-religious humiliation, and pro-forcing prisoners to remain naked and chained in uncomfortable positions in cold rooms. According to the Charlie Savage from New York Times, in 2005, only 16% approved of the waterboarding suspected terrorists, while an overwhelming majority, 82%, thought it was wrong to strap people on boards and force their heads underwater to simulate drowning. In 2012, 25% of Americans believed in waterboarding terrorists, and only 55% thought it was wrong. The only specific interrogation technique that is less popular now than in 2005 is strangely prolonged sleep deprivation. Vote no on House Bill 405 because it is extremely inhumane. United States is much better than to torture people who may have not been a part of anything terrorist related. If we want to, we can find better ways, but we shall not stoop this low. Thank you. Ms. Sloan?
I would like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Williams for supporting argument.
I yield my time to Mr. De Leon.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. This creed has been the core of our country's values since the beginning of this nation's time. Self-evident, adjective, requiring no proof or explanation. Our founding fathers believed every man was created equal, and these freedoms are a gift given to everyone at birth. Only in a nation as grand as the U.S. can you expect these freedoms, regardless of color, race, or religion. However, with great power comes great responsibility. And our founding fathers all agreed that these freedoms were granted to everyone until they deserved to be taken away. The men who are subjected to these enhanced interrogation methods are not the average criminal. They are predominantly radical terrorists who have been arrested for plans on attacking this great nation directly. And for what? Simply because we stand for what's right in this world, liberty and freedom? These are men with plans to kill innocent Americans, plans to terrorize us into submission, terrorize us so we forget the morals and values that make our foundation. These men were born with the same rights as every other man on this earth, but the moment they chose to side with evil and go against this great nation, those rights are rightfully stripped away. According to Backlash, a novel by Scott Brown, a former U.S. Senator, Obama has actually ensured that captured terrorists receive better treatment in the interrogation room than common criminals being questioned at a local police precinct, end quote. Do these men really deserve to fall under the same constitution they are working so vehemently to abolish? Another excerpt from the novel Backlash, more than 80,000 individuals were captured in the war on terror, and only around 30 were subjected to enhanced interrogation, and only 3 were waterboarded, end quote. As extreme as these tactics may seem, they are only used on the most violent of America's enemies, and only under the most dire of circumstances. According to the Prospect.org, the CIA was only able to locate bin Laden as a result of information gained during enhanced interrogation sessions. Also cited from Prospect.org, a plot to blow up the U.S. consulate in Karachi, a U.S. Marine camp in Djibouti, and to fly hijacked airplanes into buildings in London and Los Angeles were all foiled due to the information gained in these enhanced interrogations. While these tactics may not be the most pleasant, I think everyone in this room can agree it is a much better prospect than the potential deaths of hundreds of innocent American lives. Ladies and gentlemen, use your reason. These attacks are without provocation, cause, or regard for human life.
Point of order, your time is up. I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Sloan for opposition.
I yield my time to Ms. Oakes.
We should not decrease the restriction on interrogation methods. If we decrease the restrictions, then it's like saying that it's okay to use violence against someone who can be completely innocent. What happens if a military official just does not like a person? They could just want to interrogate the person just because the military official wants to see the person suffer. I personally believe that violence is not the answer. By decreasing the restrictions, I think that it would just cause a lot of unneeded violence. We also need to remember that there is a war going on. Anything can happen to traumatize any military official. If a traumatized military official wants to perform interrogation, then they could be just doing it for the wrong reasons. They could just be seeking revenge for the traumatizing event. We need to keep written permission for interrogation because it keeps someone who could be innocent safe from being interrogated. Therefore, I strongly believe that we should not decrease the restriction on interrogation methods. I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Sloan.
I would like to yield the remainder of my time to Mr. Lindau.
I stand against this bill. I find it hypocritical that we think we're so great, but we're about to allow torture. No fancy words any of you uses can disguise what this is. This is torture to our enemies. Isn't America supposed to be better than our enemies? Shouldn't we be above what they do to our people? It sets a bad example to everyone else. We're supposed to be a model. And you call us a grand country, but you want to allow this? You can't call us grand when we torture somebody. That is the mark of a tyrant. I yield my time to Ms. Sloan.
I would like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Williams for support.
I yield my time to Ms. Driver.
So you would rather risk the lives of U.S. civilians just so we can keep our honor and our pride? No. And also, to what my congresswoman over there said that military officials might have vengeance. I'm pretty sure that's their job they're doing, and there's supervisors, there's doctors, there's a team of officials there monitoring what they do, so they can't just do whatever they want to them. So, to my speech now, my fellow congressmen and congresswomen, when was the last time we had an international terrorist attack on the United States? 2001. That was 12 years ago. Nothing international has happened like that since. This is thanks to the interrogation techniques used. The CIA spokesman, Bill Harlow, says that our armed forces would not have been able to kill Osama bin Laden without these techniques. So if we didn't kill him, what else would he have done to our country along with Al-Qaeda? I'm sure all of us here are grateful for those who have served in our military. I know I'm grateful for those who have risked their lives for us. So I'm going to give you a story about two military officials, Christian Menkaka and Thomas Tucker. They gave their lives to protect us. It's bad enough that these men died overseas for us, but it's worse than that. They were tortured by Al-Qaeda without doctors on board. They torture them. So we need information to protect us here at U.S., at the United States. So if they're doing that to us, why can't we protect ourselves as well? It took a long time for these men to be correctly identified because they were severely tortured. They had severe trauma. So now I ask you the questions. If foreign countries are using much worse interrogation techniques than the United States, why should we be limited to our techniques? The matter of the fact is that our country is safer with these techniques. These techniques have helped us trace Al-Qaeda activity all the way back to 1996. And if you don't know, that was before they became well known. There are strict guidelines in place for these enhanced interrogation methods, and they need to be less strict with this bill. These particular techniques are not torture, but what other countries are doing to our brave soldiers are torture. They are torturing our officials. Do you see the United States performing terrorist attacks on innocent civilians in other countries? No, but they're doing that to us. I yield my time to Mr. Schulze.
I rise in support of House Bill 405. I strongly support decreasing restrictions on interrogation methods being used on people who intended to harm and/or kill us. The Taliban has a history of brutal torture on their detainees, and they have no restrictions to follow. Such harsh methods include blowtorching the skin, eye removal, and whipping with chains, whips, and hoses. I move to call the question.
I don't know what to say. There's a motion to call the question.
All in favor?
That is not 2/3.
Yeah, we have to count it. If it's not clear majority.
Does not look like
Looks like
2/3. Nope. That's not a 2/3 majority. It's still not 2/3.
Motion fails. Motion fails. Okay, all in favor?
Who keeps calling it, Kristen? Whatever. They do it. Josh, start moving and call the question again.
We don't care. Okay.
Still not 2/3. I can tell because once again, half the room is still not.
Motion fails.
All right. Various torture implements have been found and are including but not limited to meat cleavers and wire cutters. Former prisoners of the Taliban reported daily beatings
Point
and
of order,
torture.
your time is up.
Thank you.
I yield 4 minutes and 36 seconds to Ms. Sloan for opposition.
I yield my time to Ms. Stout.
Hi. I rise in opposition of this bill. The mere thought of decreasing the restrictions on our current interrogation methods after the whole controversy and ordeal about Guantanamo Bay is ludicrous. Nothing good came from Guantanamo Bay, and clearly it wasn't getting us anywhere if our current president, Barack Obama, shut it down. Supporters claim that these interrogation methods are a necessary evil. I want you to all consider basic human rights. Think about how you would want to be treated if you were a POW. Now, I'm going to take a wild guess and say that you personally do not want to be tortured. I could be wrong. It is proved that even the most aggressive interrogation techniques fail. In one case, even waterboarding a detainee over 100 times did not work. I quote a former U.S. counterterrorism official, quote, "They waterboarded Khalid Mohammed 183 times and he still didn't give the guy up. Come on, and you want to tell me that enhanced interrogation techniques worked?" Unquote. If this official, whose job it is to counter and prevent terrorism, thinks that these interrogation methods do not work, then why should you? Take it from Senator John McCain, and I quote, "There are many arguments to be made against torture on practical grounds. As I have said, I believe torture produces unreliable information, hinders our fight against global terrorism, and harms our national interest and reputation. But ultimately, this debate is about far more than technical or practical issues. It is about far more than whether torture works or does not work. It is about far more than utilitarian matters. Ultimately, this is about morality. What is at stake here is the very idea of America. The America whose values have inspired the world and instilled in the hearts of its citizens that certainty that no matter how hard we fight, no matter how dangerous our adversary, in the course of vanquishing our enemies, we do not compromise our deepest values. We are America, and we hold ourselves to a higher standard. That is what really is at stake." Unquote. I think this speaks for itself. John McCain was tortured at the hands of North Vietnamese captors to the point where he attempted suicide and made a false confession. Even in McCain's living example proves that these increased methods will not work. I deeply urge you to oppose this bill. And one more thing, whoever said that the police just want to, or something about the police and how they just want to beat kids for whatever, even in Marengo, like a few years back, when my sister, Megan, was in high school, there were several police officers who just beat up kids because they were provoking them. I know on first hand that the guy, Ryan Vaughn, and his older brother, they were beat up, and they didn't do anything wrong. I yield my time to Ms. Sloan.
I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Grossen.
Thank you. I do not see the need for increasing methods
We have no imposing threat on hand, and two wrongs don't make a right. We shouldn't be able to pit ourselves up against other countries. Just because they do it doesn't mean we should follow suit. I yield the rest of the time to Ms. Sloan.
I move to call the question.
It's a motion to call the question. All in favor? Motion passes. We'll now move to a vote.
This is such a sketchy bill. I can't even believe it got here.
divorce rates went down by 21%. For states that do not necessarily have same-sex marriage as completely legal, there are civil unions, in which are legal contracts between partners that are recognized by a state or government as conferring all or some of the rights conferred by marriage, but without the implicit historical and religious meaning associated with the word marriage. These certain states that are civil union friendly consist of Colorado, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, New Jersey, and Rhode Island. A key point is that Connecticut, Vermont, and New Hampshire were in fact civil unions but were placed as legal same-sex marriage states. Marriage is not just a title that people would like to have. As said by Peter Sprigg, Director of Marriage and Family Studies at the Family Research Council, civil unions suggested should be rejected. Civil unions are nothing but a counterfeit form of marriage, just as counterfeit currency has the potential to bankrupt an economy. Redefining the social foundation of civilization by transforming homosexual behavior into a public norm has the potential to wreak havoc on social life as America knows it. Because marriage serves a public purpose, namely procreation and the benefit of children and society, government can legitimately privilege marriage and seek to strengthen it in its policies.
Okay, personally, my sister is homosexual, and she has domestic partnership with her significant other, Jessica. She currently lives in Ohio, but will be traveling to Illinois to gain a civil union, in which she really does not want because it is not the full title. She wants the title married because a civil union, as said before, is pretty much a fake marriage. She loves the woman she's with, and I come from a very strong Republican family, but we all support her no matter what. You cannot truly disapprove of gay marriage if you do not know someone who is homosexual. You would not then understand how happy it makes the person who is in love, how happy it makes their life.
Homosexual couples should be allowed to marry in order to receive the same benefits as heterosexual couples. These include receiving Social Security, Medicare for spouses, obtaining insurance benefits through a spouse's employer, receiving wages, workers' comp, and retirement plan benefits for a deceased spouse, visiting the spouse in a hospital ICU, or during restricted visiting hours in other parts of a medical facility, making medical decisions for the spouse in the event that he or she is unable to express wishes for treatment, receiving family rates for health, homeowners, auto, and other types of insurance, and being able to file jointly on their taxes, which saves the couple a significant amount of money. Until gay marriage is legalized, homosexual couples do not have the right to any of these.
As it stands, homosexuals are not granted with the rights promised them by the Constitution. The little things like the pursuit of happiness, freedom of religion, and every man was created equally. Under the current marriage laws were found unconstitutional under both the due process and equal protection clauses. Since there is a separation of church and state in this country, this is not a question of morality or religion. This is a question of civil rights. For example, ask anyone if they would like to have been African American or a woman in the 50s, 40s, and so on. Probably not, right? Because they were lower on the spectrum, at the bottom of the proverbial food chain, if you will. But nowadays, the races and genders are about equal, because they did their fight for equality over 40 years ago, and now it is our turn to fight for equality, because this is going to happen. No, it is.
Point of order, your time is up. I grant 3 minutes to Ms. Williams for opposition.
I would just quickly like to point out in this bill, Part 4, permissions and costs associated with this bill. Line 1, $905 million is the estimated cost to the federal government for same-sex couples to get equal benefits. The next line goes on to say, would help economically, bringing thousands of jobs and $19 million annually. So which is it? Are we gaining money? Are we losing money? I'm unsure. And neither of them are sourced. I yield my time to Ms. Cartwright.
I rise in opposition regarding the bill legalizing gay marriage. According to balancedpolitics.org, gay marriage confuses children about gender roles and expectations of society. Only a man and woman can procreate. Children learn about expectations and gender roles from society. It's difficult to teach the importance and traditions of the family when such confusion is thrust upon them. I understand that two women can take care of a child on their own, but in reality, there is the man and there is the woman in the relationship. Why do you think that is? It's because it's natural for a man and a woman to be together. Only a man and a woman can bear children. Men who have sex with other men accounted for 78% of estimated HIV diagnoses among all males aged 13 and older, and 61% of estimated diagnoses among all persons receiving an HIV diagnosis in 2010. The gay community wants the general public to believe that they are in a committed, monogamous relationships. However, one study reported that 66% of gay couples reported sex outside the relationship within the first year, and nearly 90% of the...
I request a source, or rather a point of information.
Tracy Hansen, PhD.
Thank you.
I understand that this might not be correct for all cases of homosexual love, but this needs to be taken into consideration. Tracy Hansen also stated that if society permits same-sex marriage, it will also have to allow other types of marriage. The legal logic is simple. If prohibiting same-sex marriage is discriminatory, then disallowing polygamous marriages or any other marital grouping would also be deemed discriminatory. If everybody is allowed to do what they want, society will travel on a spiraling downward course for ultimately not having any regulations. In regards to the statement saying that same-sex marriage will lead to polygamy, Tom had quotes, "Even if this concern had a rational basis, a simpler solution to this problem would be to propose a constitutional amendment banning polygamy, which would also be easily ratified, rather than fooling around with an anti-gay constitutional amendment that..."
Point of order, your time is up.
Thank you.
I grant 3 minutes to Ms. Sloan for supporting arguments.
I yield my time to Ms. Grossen.
Colleagues, friends, and all watching this now, I would like to take this time to talk to you about my desire to see a bill pass. The bill I'm talking about is House Bill number 202, titled Legalizing Same-Sex Marriage. Again, the bill is titled Legalization of Same-Sex Marriage. Legalize. Honestly, I'm embarrassed and a little appalled that we have to use the term legalize. There should be no crime associated with it. Marriage equality threatens traditional marriage in the same way that abolishing slavery made freedom less enjoyable for white people. I'm assuming you all caught that. I stand in front of you, my fellow committee members, urging you to rise in support of House Bill 202. Regardless of personal beliefs, how you were raised, or perhaps your own fear of homosexuality, there are many benefits one must recognize that come with the legalization of gay marriage, both fiscally and socially. To address the family issues that were stated from the side of opposition, a longitudinal study published in Pediatrics on June 7, 2010, found that children of lesbian mothers were rated higher than children of heterosexual parents in both social and academic competence and had fewer social problems. And for the fiscal part, gay marriage would reduce the budget deficit by $450 million a year. That statistic comes from USA Today. Marriage is a human right, not a heterosexual privilege. Don't be on the wrong side of history again. Denying same-sex couples the right to marry stigmatizes gay and lesbian families as inferior and sends a message that it's okay to discriminate against them. Gay marriage won't lead to dog marriage. It is not a slippery slope leading to interspecies coupling. When women got the right to vote, did hamsters start voting? No. What valid arguments are out there against gay marriage? Gay marriage and straight marriage are the same thing as bikini tops and bras. The sad thing, only one is acceptable in public. Remember to vote yes on House Bill 202, legalizing same-sex marriage. I yield the rest of the time to Ms. Sloan.
I would like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Williams for opposition.
We have a video that we would like to play. Can we shut the lights off or something so we can see?
On it.
Thank you, Rebecca. Mr. Chairman, I request the floor.
I yield it to Ms. Williams. for
I would
3
like
minutes.
to play our video now. Thanks.
Point of order.
Can we get the sound?
Due to technical difficulties, I'm stopping the clock.
Should I say that? You can say it.
The clock is stopped for technical difficulties, so this isn't taken away from your time, guys, just so you know.
Point of order.
Point of order, you guys do not have the floor. I know, I'm like, what? Well, because this stopwatch doesn't work, so I have to use my phone. Point of order, guys.
I'm going to go ask Christine.
Point of order, none of you have the floor.
Ms. Evans, please introduce yourself for the record.
My name is Grace Evans, and I want to thank you for letting me speak today. Even though I'm only 11 years old, I know that everyone deserves to have a mom and a dad. If you change the law that says 2 moms or 2 dads could get married, it would take away something very important for children like me across the state. My mom is very important to me because she teaches me about things about being a girl. She is kind, thoughtful, gentle, and beautiful. She cares for me and others and listens very well to things I want to talk to them about. I am learning from her to be a good woman, wife, and mother someday. Even though I learned some of these things from my dad, my mom teaches them in a very special way. Without my mom, it would be very hard for me to learn them. She is my role model on how to be a girl, and I love her very much. My dad is also very important to me because he protects me and helps me get the confidence to be a girl who is growing up to be a woman. He takes care of problems in a way that my mom cannot. Just like my mom wouldn't be able to be the woman she is without my dad. I wouldn't be able to be the woman I want to be without my dad. Because he is strong, wise, and different than my mom, I learned things from him that I would not be able to learn in the same way from my mom. Since every child needs a mom and a dad to be born, I don't think we can change that children need a mom and a dad. I believe God made it that way. I know some disagree, but I want to ask you this question. Which parent do I not need, my mom or my dad? I'll ask again, which parent do I not need, my mom or my dad? I hope that you can see that every child needs a mom and a dad. Please don't change your law on marriage to say otherwise. Thank you for letting me speak today.
I would like to reserve the remainder of my time.
Oh, what? What'd you say?
Thank you.
I yield 3 minutes to Ms. Sloan for opposing argument.
I'm like blinded.
Or wait, supporting, sorry.
Can we turn the light
Point of order, Ms. Sloan has the floor.
I would like to yield the remainder of my time to Ms. McCone. The ban of same-sex marriage is unconstitutional. I rise today in support of House Bill 202, the legalization of same-sex marriage in all 50 states. The ban aims to make homosexuals feel less human and set them apart from other individuals.
Everyone has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So why is the government allowed to deem same-sex marriage wrong under their own opinion and religious views? Isn't that taking away one's right to the pursuit of happiness? Church and state are supposed to be separate, so why do we as citizens continue to bring up the moral aspect of this? This bill aims to give citizens equal rights, not to deem same-sex marriage morally right. Our society has grown so far from the conservative ways of only allowing a man and a woman to marry. Who are we as congressmen and women to take away a gay or lesbian's right to happiness with a person of similar gender? According to debate.org/gay marriage, the word marriage is not defined uniformly across cultures. In 1922, the word has been taken to refer to a relationship of one or more men or one or more women that is recognized by law and involves certain legal and social rights and duties. Individuals who are married also carry legal responsibility for children that they produce together. Modern definitions, however, have different variation. The Oxford English Dictionary, for example, has acknowledged same-sex marriage in its definition since the year 2000. However, conservative publications have not yet changed their definitions. The people who oppose same-sex marriage today have reasons to me that seem a little ignorant. These people are uncomfortable with the idea and tend to neglect the fact that our society is changing and this is becoming more socially acceptable. This bill is solely to give gays and lesbians equal rights and the same benefits of married couples. Pass this bill if you believe everyone should be created equal. I yield the remainder of my time to Ms. Sloan.
The opponents have a lot to say about how you need a mom and a dad to be raised, but I would say that single parents and divorced families do it perfectly fine. With that, I would like to reserve the remainder of my time.
I grant Ms. Williams 3 minutes and 56 seconds for opposition.
I yield my time to Ms. Tucker.
Okay, the biggest point of the video was to show the children's rights. We're always about children's rights in America, so we want to hear what the children have to say. As many of you know, I am Catholic, and I have strong views about churches marrying gay couples. I previously asked if churches would be sued if they refused to marry a gay couple because it is against their religion. The bill sponsor says no, and they also said that it does not have to do with freedom of religion. However, in the state of Washington, where gay marriage is legal, a florist was asked to sell flowers to a gay couple for a wedding, but is now being sued by the American Civil Liberties Union and the state attorney general for refusing to provide service to a gay couple planning their wedding, even though it is a private business that should be able to decide who they sell and who they don't sell their products to. The florist said she would not sell the flowers to the same-sex wedding because of her religious beliefs. Her attorney said forcing his client to sell flowers to a gay wedding violated her constitutional rights of freedom of speech, association, and religious exercise. Fellow floor members, I want you to understand that this does have to do with freedom. In this case, freedom of religion and freedom of speech. This is similar to the health care bill constructed by Obama. All hospitals, Catholic or not, have to provide abortion services even if it's against their belief or religion. I understand that civil unions do not receive the same benefits as marriage would, but there are reasons for it. A mom and a dad with kids should receive more benefits from the government because of their need to help and raise a family and send their kids to school and college. If same-sex couples want benefits dealing with sickness or death, why aren't we trying to change the benefits given to civil unions? Instead, we are entering a sacred territory and destroying the meaning of marriage. We should be focusing on the benefits same-sex couples should receive in order to be given their equal rights. Aren't the benefits what they want anyway? Situations like what happened to the florist will occur. People are going to be forced to aid the practice that is against their religion. Unfortunately, this is already happening where gay marriage is legal. Yes, I am against gay marriage, but I'm not against being equal. I believe that these people should receive equal benefits under certain circumstances. Two gays cannot have children. Therefore, they should not be receiving any extra money from the government for their kids, but when it comes to their health and of an individual and sickness, we should be working together to change the benefits for civil unions so that it is easier for two gays to earn them. Floor members, each of you got here today by a mom and a dad. Changing the law and encouraging same-sex marriage would eventually lead to the destruction of religion, reduction of freedom, and redefine the family unit, which is a vital foundation of a strong and united country. So fellow floor members, I encourage you to help me fail this bill. Thank you for your time. I reserve my remainder of my time.
I move to call the question.
The motion to call the question. All in favor? Point of order, I have the floor. It fails.
I counted 48, guys. Sorry.
This isn't fair. Well, I'm trying to see if we're going to get the floor back.
Motion fails.
Madam Chair, I request the floor.
Floor is still mine.
Your time expired.
Motion. She has 4 seconds left.
Yeah, she had 4 seconds left.
Point of order.
Just, what's their overtime?
4 minutes and 21 seconds.
I grant Ms. Sloan 4 minutes and 20 seconds for supporting arguments.
Thank you. I yield the floor to Mr. Galante.
My fellow congressmen and women, I stand here before you as a Republican. I am in support of House Bill 202, legalizing same-sex marriage. Could you imagine the love of your life in the hospital, fighting for their life, and you not being granted permission to visit them? Or could you imagine watching all your family and friends getting married, divorced, married again, and divorced again, and you're not even given one opportunity to get married once? This is the reality for some.
Point of order. We never finished our vote. It was never called if it failed or passed. I would like to know the count, and I would like to know the numbers. That way we know if it's majority or 2/3 majority or not.
Point of order, they're purposely running the clock.
It failed with 49 votes.
And I stopped the clock, Rebecca, so you still have your time.
This is reality for many same-sex couples. This is why I'm for making same-sex marriage legal. Instead of focusing on the genders of couples, we should focus on the love that two should share. Not allowing a couple to get married based on sex is discrimination. Epitaph of Leonard P. Matlovich was quoted as saying, "When I was in the military, they gave me a medal for killing 2 men and a discharge for loving one." When it comes to marriage, love should be the only factor that matters. Just because many people don't agree with their choice doesn't mean they should have to suffer a life of unhappiness. Plenty of heterosexual couples get married even though everyone in their life disagrees. Everyone should be granted the right to love no matter who it is. Secondly, not allowing same-sex couples to marry is a form of discrimination. The definition of discrimination is unjust, or prejudicial treatment. So not allowing couples to get married contradicts the equality that this country supposedly stands for. According to U.S. Supreme Court, it was declared in 1974's Cleveland Board of Education versus LaFleur that the freedom of personal choice in matters of marriage and family life is one of the liberties protected by due clause, unquote. Thus, banning same-sex marriage is unconstitutional. Many might say that allowing same-sex couples to get married will ruin the sanctity of marriage, but I disagree. Marriage is traditionally recognized as a union between a man and a woman, but there is no such thing as traditional marriage anymore. According to New York Times, 60% of divorces occur in the first 10 years of marriage. Most same-sex couples have been together for more than 10 years. About half of all marriages end in divorce. According to American Psychological Association, 40 to 50% of marriages will end in legal separation, And we even go so far as praising celebrities by dedicating countdowns and congratulating them on big divorce settlements. Kim Kardashian marriage was at the top of everyone's news headline because her marriage only lasted 72 days. Allowing same-sex couples the right to be married won't ruin marriage any more than opposite-sex couples. In conclusion, same-sex couples should be allowed the same opportunity as couples of the opposite sex to get married. To decide that a couple isn't worthy of marriage because they are the same sex is unjust. It's also out of line for people to argue that they will ruin the sanctity of marriage when it was a heterosexual couples have already done so and are allowed to make a mockery of the serious situation. For those of you who are against same-sex marriage, what if years from now, your younger family members, best friend, or even your child chose to live an alternative lifestyle? Even if you didn't agree, wouldn't you want them to be happy? So instead of being judgmental, let's try to be open-minded and tolerant of others. I yield my time to Rebecca Sloan.
Thank you. My fellow representatives, I rise in support of House Bill 202, legalization of same-sex marriage. First off, I'd like to mention that I came out as a homosexual when I was 14 years old. At a very young age, I have endured much ridicule and was treated like an individual of lesser value on account of my sexuality. Some of this ridicule has come from those of you that are sitting in this room. On days like these, I would ask myself why people are so hateful towards others with different lifestyles. We all have our own morals and values. Mine, however,
Point of order, your time is up.
Thank you.
I move to call the question. All in favor? Majority. Motion passes. Go to your post to vote.
Point of order, we did not have an official count on that. That was a guesstimation of how many people raised their hands.
Everyone, for a vote, can you guys please raise your hands?
I call division.
What does that mean?
83.
Can I say one thing? One thing I would like to mention, we as homosexuals...
Point of order, you cannot talk in the microphone.
Homosexual couples will not be held to the same standard as heterosexual couples.
Currently, I do not believe that. It depends, because adoption for gay couples, I don't know what states that's legal in, so it's a different topic. But I do know that if our country were to run into gay marriage being encouraged, what is our country going to come to? Because our population is going to decrease, and what will we become to live to? Just like the Greeks at the time, their civilization resulted in heterosexuality, or heterosexuality, and their culture declined. So what will our country come to? And we want our children say, because they're the ones that come from a mom and a dad.
Well, do you believe that children such as myself, who only have one parent because my mom recently passed away, that we will not be held to the same standard because we do not currently have both parents, a male and a female, in our lives?
It will harm you, yes. It's going to be a harm on you. If you grow up and your mom's gone in your life, yes, it's going to be difficult because you're not going to have that role model that you need. It's just like if I were to grow up and my dad were to pass away. I know people in this school that if their mom or dad pass away, it's hard for them to grow up, just like when it's deceased. So just like heterosexual people, if they're going to be getting homosexual people, gays or lesbians, if they were to grow up, it's going to harm them the same exact way. So yes, it is harmful. You need a mom and a dad to grow up.
All right, thank you for your time.
No votes and 26 abstentions. House Bill 202 passes.
Hey, nice job, seniors. Great job on this whole thing. We wanted to ask if any volunteers can stick around and break down, because tonight they have a concert. So if any volunteers can help us break down the stage, we appreciate it.